Pizza presents STP. The Steve Dangle Podcast with your hosts, Steve Dangle and Adam Wilde.
Well, this is the first time in this particular studio we've had to use a fourth microphone.
It's true.
Steve, would you like to do the introductions?
Everybody. Hockey's hottest free agent. Rachel Dory, everybody. Rachel Dory.
Hello.
Hi, Rachel, finally.
Finally, what is it, 18 months?
Yeah, easily that.
It's been time.
Yeah, it's been some time. Well, you disappeared for a while, but it's nice to have you back. And I know that if you don't know Rachel that well, Rachel's done some work with The Athletic, is way ahead of her time in terms of hockey philosophy, and of course, you had an article come out in The Athletic, and which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show, concerning mental health, and it was quite brave and quite honest, which was awesome. That was really, really cool.
She had the world's quickest why I'm joining The Athletic, why I'm leaving The Athletic.
How many articles did you write for The Athletic before you were hired?
I think the final count was 7.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Well, and I guess they were real good.
Can I ask
because
about
you got
that?
picked up by the New Jersey Devils.
Why? Yeah, we're allowed to say that at least,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yes.
so you were working for the Devils for a bit. How did you get hired by the Athletic though? Like how did that all happen? Because that's the first step.
So what happened, that's actually the second. So the first thing was I was interviewing with the Leafs for the job that Jack Han eventually got, and which is why I was on the ice at development camp with the Leafs, and that's sort of where...
And what would that job have been?
It would have been sort of an analyst for the player development staff.
Okay.
Now Jack's moved up and he's sort of Kyle's right hand almost, but it essentially was helping Scott Pellerin and Darryl Belfry and Mike Ellis break down stuff for prospects.
So you literally would have disappeared forever. That would have been
Under
the last
Lou,
we'd heard.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that's crazy.
So
Did you have an interview with Lou?
I did. I met him at development camp. He came up from behind, so I didn't see him coming, and tapped me on the shoulder and just outstretched his hand and said, "Good morning, I am Lou Lamoriello." And in my head, I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I know.
So what was that like? You must. Were you scared? Like I don't even know. I don't even know what to say right now.
Between that and then the comment he made about my hoodie, I almost cried.
What was the comment?
So me and Pero Greco, who's now the coach of the Islanders, ironically, the goalie coach.
That's right,
We
yeah.
were, I don't know if anyone knows, but the Marlies practice arena is really cold. So when you're standing out there for 5 hours, you're going to need some type of sweater underneath your jacket.
Where do they practice?
At MasterCard, but on there.
Their
one of the
particular
other ice.
pad of ice is actually really cold, yeah.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's like -8 in there.
It's cold.
So I was wearing a hoodie under my jacket. But then after the practice, Pero and I and Darryl Belfry walk into sort of the back where they're serving the food. And then Sheldon Keefe and Lou walk in. And Lou says to Sheldon, after looking at me and Pero, "What do you think of the hoodies, Sheldon?" And Sheldon goes, "I hate hoodies. They shouldn't have that. You shouldn't wear them." And Lou goes, "Well, you know what we could always do?" And he picks up Pero's hoodie and just goes like this and makes the scissor motion. I sprinted to the locker room and went to Bobby Hastings, who's the equipment guy, and said, "You get me something without a hood because I will not wear it around Lou anymore."
Fair enough. Wow, he's a
terrifying...
got quite the presence, huh?
That's a terrifying duo, too. Two unreadable, potentially angry, but otherwise quiet men. Lou
Yes.
Lamoriello and Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
then when I didn't get that job, Myrtle and I had been talking because he wanted to bring me on. And so I was waiting.
How did he get to know you?
Through Twitter.
Really?
He just kind of DM'd me when I was writing my own blog because I was literally a basement blogger. I live in my mom's basement. And so when I didn't get that job, I reached back out to James. I said, "I didn't get the thing with the Leafs. I'm ready to go if you are." And he's like, "Perfect. Please have an article ready for next week."
Amazing.
Wow.
And then you really had carte blanche to kind of write what you wanted, right?
Yeah, I could pick whatever I wanted. There was never any, "Oh, we'd like you to write about this." It was quite literally, what do I think is interesting? And
That's pretty neat
write about it.
And what's cool about that too is that basically served as your resume for the Devils too.
That's how Ray found me. He read my article that I wrote about the Devils,
That's just nuts.
which
That's
was,
so-
I think, the
that's so
last
cool.
article that I wrote.
It's great to hear it just worded that plainly because I've said for a long time, guys, they're out there and they're reading your stuff. There's a reason all these quote-unquote ex-basement bloggers are getting scooped up by NHL teams. They're reading your content and then going, hey, that's pretty good, and then having an interview with you to make sure you're relatively well put together.
Well, it was interesting earlier in the season in 31 Thoughts. Freach put out there that he said it's only a matter of time before Tyler Jello starts working for an NHL team again. I wonder if the Oilers are reinterested in his services. He grew up in Edmonton, was an Oiler fan, would be very interesting.
Should have never left.
Oh yeah,
Should've
I mean,
never
there's no
left.
question about that. But I mean, it's one of those things. Like,
No, they're much better off. Clearly,
Think about where the Oilers would be if because here's the, like we said before, Tyler's not a guy that's going to tell you anything with flowery language.
No.
It might be colorful language, but definitely not flowery. He's not going to. So if he had been there as a kind of a blunt force object, which Oilers front office clearly needs, I wonder how different their team would look today.
Was it the Hall trade he tried to stop? Was that the story?
no. I think you're confusing him with Matt Pfeffer from the Canadiens, who yelled at. He's like, "For the love of God, don't trade Subban for Weber."
Yes.
And then they
now he
traded
works-
him, and now he works for Nashville.
Yeah. They fired Pfeffer, and then Pfeffer got picked up by Nashville because they were like they heard
So
about the
good.
story. Yeah,
So good.
and they were pretty good. Nashville's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, they're all right.
So yeah, I mean it's such an interesting story, and it's so like your story is so cool, and we are literally very very much abbreviating it. But that's because we're going to do a normal show today with you on it. You know, we
Awesome.
think that your story serves as a great example for young people, but also a great example for women and for anybody that ever asks us, "Hey, how can I go about doing this?" You're the perfect example, and so it's it'll be kind of nice to have your perspective on a lot of the hockey stuff that we don't know what that goes on behind the scenes, and we wouldn't ask you anything about with the Devils and that sort of thing, but you do know things about hockey. You watch the game differently. You know the game so much more intimately than us, the average fans. And I think it's going to be kind of neat today to have that sort of perspective.
Yeah. So anyway, tell me all the Devil's deepest, darkest secrets. I want to know them all. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No,
You
but
see, Steve.
Yeah, you see, would never put you in that.
I guess
position.
if we're going to start somewhere, we should probably start with Saturday night, John Tavares and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
It was great. It was great. I know I was at the game. TJ was at the game. Were you at the game?
I was not. I was
You were
in
not at
Perth.
the game. Jesse,
Yeah.
Rachel,
I was downtown watching the game.
you were downtown watching the game.
On my couch watching the game.
On your couch
Yes.
watching the game. It was electric.
Jesse
in
told me
that
he was
building.
naked watching the game.
I mean, I would always be naked. if
That's
was
how I
Jesse.
watch all games.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
is,
Don't
that, is
you?
that the Leafs' good luck charm? Is that
It
you
is,
have to
yeah.
watch with no clothes on?
They've never lost a game I've been naked for.
See, that's my
right.
thing. My thing is I got to be in a certain spot on the couch. Yours, okay, very much.
Fair enough.
So,
Oh yeah, that's right. Because Steve's certain spot on the couch, remember, that's his
worked.
good luck spot.
it worked.
Rachel, he wouldn't come. I don't know if you heard this episode last year. I know you were deep in the playoffs, but during the first round last year, Steve flat out refused to watch the game with Jesse and I because he thought by staying on that couch that it was going to be good luck.
Right.
And it's clearly worked out well.
And
for
they
him.
I can
lost.
tell you, having been on the other side, some of the superstitions that I came across were borderline, you may need to be checked into a mental health
Really?
institution. Yeah. And
Do you have any examples? Can we pry?
yeah.
You don't have to tell us who.
I know of one player, he actually wasn't a devil, but I know of one player who has to use a certain brand of plastic knife to spread his peanut butter before getting
That's
tea.
unbelievable.
Oh my god!
Like, it was ridiculous. Some of the things that we came across, or the tape had to be stacked a certain way. Like, some of the stuff you come across when you're on the other side,
Oh.
like, you're a professional athlete, guys. Come on.
But there's also some sort of like to be that devoted to anything, to be devoted like what it takes to be a professional athlete. You have to be a little nuts, right? You have to be a little crazy.
Well, wasn't it John Tavares who said like he used to have more, and now he has less? Because like to get into it, he had a lot of superstitions and was like super, worried about just making it every day. And then as he got older, he's like, you know what? Maybe if I don't use that brand of plastic knife, I think
Yeah.
everything will still be okay. I don't know. I got 3 points last night, and I accidentally forgot the knives at home.
I think
Exactly.
Something like
it was
that.
Chris Draper that told me he got the entire right side of his body dressed, and then it was the entire left side. So he'd go,
What?
he'd get he'd obviously, there's shoulder pads and stuff you can't, but he would do his jock and then right shin pad, his
Right
sock, and then right skate, and then his pants, and then his elbow pads, and then he'd go to the other side and go up, and it was just. that was just his thing. I know it's weird, super weird, but that's NHL players, right? They're fanatical about details, and they're fanatical about how they eat and sleep and all those things. You have to be a little nuts.
Well, eating and sleeping is one thing, but I don't know if you guys remember when the Winter Classic was still really big and they did the 24/7 on the Penguins. They spent a good 5 to 10 minutes walking through Sidney Crosby's pregame routine.
Right.
And he goes like
it
around the
was
building, right?
Insane.
Yeah.
And he still does it. Now, in New Jersey, we don't have anyone that I'm aware of with that kind of superstition, but even if they did, the way you walk in the building from the parking lot, you either turn left to go to the visitors or you turn right to go to the Devils dressing room. So that would be easier for Crosby. But at PP&G or wherever Pittsburgh plays, like whatever the name arena.
It was Mellon. I forget.
No, the new one, the Consol.
Yeah.
He would have to walk like 3/4 around the arena. Like, what?
That's just what he does.
I've heard the same thing about another player actually the other day, where basically you get off the bus, the first room is the visitor's room, and then it's the home room. Well, he never wanted to walk past the visitor's room, so he would literally just do a lap of the arena to get to the home room because that was his thing.
And obviously, didn't we go through, Jesse, the Jack Eichel?
We did.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay,
that,
that's
remember?
nuts.
That's crazy. No wonder he gets so excited when he scores. Like if your life is that buttoned down, that would be a release.
Well,
I
I
think.
just knew it. I do whatever reason knew it. Yeah. Like you imagine he goes through a slump.
Oh my God!
Oh, no.
What an existential crisis! Like, oh my, do I change the routine? He couldn't possibly.
No.
And then he finally scores after 20 games. Knew it. Yes.
With regards to Saturday night, though, obviously there was a lot that went into that game. There was the hashtag beforehand. There was the chirping back and forth with the Islanders and Leafs fans. There was members of the media loving it, members of the media hating it, and then John Tavares hits the ice, gets a standing ovation when he hits the ice for warm-up. Gets another standing ovation, and what was so cool was that if you didn't catch the game, the Leafs, they usually start with the forwards and then the defense and then the goalie for how they introduce the starting lineup.
Yeah.
In this particular case, they did Freddie Anderson out. So they did Freddie, they did the defense, they did the wingers, and then they did John. And what was so cool was that the rest of the line kind of backed off and let him have his moment. And it's rare, I think, that you see a player take off his helmet.
Yes, that was very interesting to me. And everything the Leafs staff did, everything they did that game was top marks. So people don't realize. So when he comes onto the ice, people started cheering, but he was the first player whose stats were displayed on the screen. So they didn't go in order of like points or anything like that. It's just very clearly, all right, JT is the focus tonight. Then, like you said, they switched up the opening lineup, takes off his helmet. One of the loudest ovations I've ever heard in that building, ever. And then, I don't know what this was like on the broadcast, and I want your perspective on this. The game doesn't start for another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because there was like a glass or what was broken.
So what it was, and I happen to be sitting close to the TV, and I actually know the guy who takes care of the ice at the ACC or at Scotiabank. So I was like, what the heck is happening? There was, in warm-up, somebody had shot the puck and missed the net, shockingly.
On the Sabres.
It cracked, but it kind of looked like a scuff. So it cracked the glass, and because the lights go down after warm-up, no one noticed. So no one noticed until the lights came back up after O Canada that the glass was cracked, and you can't play with cracked glass.
Well, if someone smashes into it, which is likely because it's behind the net, it could have been real bad.
And
exactly. So then
on TV, they just went to the other game. They just showed Montreal, Pittsburgh.
They didn't explain what happened?
No, they went through and they're like, yeah, the glass, they're fixing it. But then after it was like 5 minutes, they're like, okay, we're just going to show the other game.
And they did a commercial.
Yeah.
Which is a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
The Leafs staff
on.
just went ballistic. Like, I can't imagine what was going on all the headsets, but they're like, T-shirts! And they just start firing T-shirts into the crowd. They put that little bouncy little version of Carlton the Bear on the screen. It was great. No one had a bad time. And it was Saturday. I think there's this air whenever there's like a delay or something in a weeknight game of like, can we get this game going? Like, I got to catch the train. I got to go home or what? Saturday?
Get comfortable.
No one had anywhere to be.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm drinking tonight. We're all good.
And on the point about people not liking it, whether it was fans or some prominent members of the media.
Oh, just name them. Who cares?
Hockey is, you have to have fans to support the game, and any way you can engage fans is probably good. So I don't understand why people have an issue with what Carolina's doing. I don't understand why people have an issue with Toronto fans, who usually are in suits because of how expensive the tickets are, cheering. If fans want to show up and cheer, unless it's using inappropriate language like it was on Thursday.
And maybe throwing stuff.
Let them have their fun.
Yeah.
You want to create an atmosphere where people who, I have friends who I've introduced to hockey, and they say, why do I want to go to a game? It's dead silent there. Now you see an atmosphere like that, or one in Carolina, people want to go because you want to be a part of that. Why are you taking that away?
Well, the great thing about it is I don't think anybody can. And so the backstory on this, if you haven't heard it quickly, is that I was at the gym on Friday. Was it Friday? Yeah, I think the game was Thursday night after that stinker against the Islanders.
It's awful.
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for the team. It was embarrassing for John. And Islanders fans had their moment, and I think it was cathartic for them, and that was good.
They won the day.
And I don't begrudge them that. I think that, if that's, it was a big moment for them, and it was a fun moment, and it was cool to see the Coliseum that nuts. Like, it was great. And then so I said, our response, not to them, but should be to John, and should be to say, hey, like, you picked the right team. You came to the right place, and we're going to support you on that. So it was just like Tavares Day TO, and the whole point for me when I started it was, hey, can we get this trending, and can we get the mayor to tweet about it? That's all I cared about. And I messaged a bunch of guys in the Leafs Twitter community, and they were more than happy to at least give it a bump, and it spread. And at that point, it's not yours anymore. You might have started it, but it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the whole fan base.
And you sort of left it alone because then you were on the show and you're just recording on the show.
We
and
did the podcast. Yeah.
Halfway through, you're like, John Tory, the mayor of Toronto.
And that was cool.
The hashtag.
And what was great was I was worried that, and like so many hashtags, I was worried that it would trend on Friday but not on Saturday.
Right.
But apparently it did trend on Saturday, so we were okay.
When you get like Mark Masters asking about it before the game,
right.
And Luke Fox wrote about it after. Mm-hmm. So people picked it up.
Yeah, he asked me for a quote and everything. That was crazy. So I'm in the article.
My favorite part was when pregame, you would have missed this because you were at the game.
Yeah.
I think it was Mackenzie, might have been Bukauskas, asked Hainsey about it.
I think it would have been...
It was Kyle. It was
Bukauskas asked Hainsey about it, and he's like, Tavares really needs that.
Oh, really?
It was so tongue-in-cheek, but awesome.
Yeah.
So the players knew about it, which was great.
Yeah, I think that's cool too. And I'm not saying it for that.
I don't care if you want it.
But what was cool was that, and a few people messaged me privately in the media who were like, hey, that was great, that was really cool. Mm-hmm. And then the ones that didn't like it, with the exception, and you can say what you want about Walker, at least he tags me directly. I got subtweeted and sub-talked about on so many radio stations and so many reporters and whatever, who were so embarrassed by it. I think Toronto, you got to understand something about this city. Toronto is two halves. And Toronto is the Protestant stay-at-home. There's nothing going on downtown. Very few people show up to our Stanley Cup parade in 1967 crowd.
Yeah.
And it didn't really change for about 30 years after that. And then there's the new Toronto, which is there's stuff going on downtown. There's festivals. There's beer things. There's actual tourist destinations. You have to remember, 20 years ago, there was nothing happening here. Nothing. And so... we got the old school, the new school, and I think there are some young people who are old school. I think you got old men in young bodies, to be honest with you.
Traitors.
And it's...
91 tours.
91.
You're betraying your own age.
So there was a couple things. And I don't want to belabor the point, because it shouldn't be about the hashtag. The point here is that Leafs Nation has been told we're quiet and silent, and we don't do anything for so long. We are the biggest fan base in the league by far. We are allowed. We just might not be in the arena, and I think that proved it. And then I think the second thing was, I noticed something on Twitter. I noticed a strategy, and this is going to sound a little bit tinfoil hat, but go with me on this, okay?
I'm with it.
So you've seen the screenshotted tweet now, you must have, of the Leaf fans saying, boy, I wish 9/11 had hit more than the Twin Towers or whatever that was, right?
Yes.
So I noticed, and then there, of course, the April Reimer article was circulating
Adam,
as well.
have you been thinking about this for a few days?
Yes, but I want to know. I want to throw this out there. I want to throw this out there.
No, do it.
I think it's important because there are two major elections in North America coming up in the next 2 years.
Yes.
And I think it's really important that we acknowledge this. I don't know if that original Leafs tweet was a Leafs fan or not. But what I can tell you is that the accounts that tended to perpetuate it were not real. And one of the strategies, and I've been really obsessed quietly with this Russian hacking stuff, one of the strategies the troll farms had is they would take a fake tweet from a fake account that is bombastic. So in the case of the American election, it would be something extremely rightist or extremely leftist.
Yeah.
Either way, it would offend you. And what it would do is they would fight with their own fake Twitter account. So fake Twitter account 1 tweets it, fake Twitter account 2 fights them, and they go back and forth like a tennis game until other people start picking it up. Start getting it. Can you believe that you said this? Can you believe this? Can you believe this? And so what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of I saw a lot of Leaf accounts that were definitely not real because they were 5 tweets old. I saw a lot of Islanders accounts that were like Islanders 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boobs, and it would be, and it was like, and the amount of fake Islander accounts that were tweeting me, and this was another thing about the Russian hacking thing that is super interesting. A lot of the insults that they would throw were homophobic, and all of the Islander fans, and I don't think they were. In my direct messages, because my direct messages are wide open, all the fans in my at replies that I question whether they're real Twitter accounts were making homophobic remarks. Oh, did you give him a tug? Did you tuck him in? Did you, whatever it was? And they were much worse than that. And I think on both sides, I think somebody, whether I don't think it was a Russian troll farm, I don't know, but a lot of those Twitter accounts were not real. They were not even Twitter would classify them as bots. Yeah. And so I found it very, very interesting. When I get all this, I would log into my Twitter account and I would get all this hate, and then I'd look at the actual accounts that they were coming from, and they wouldn't be more than 3 or 4 tweets old. So it could have been just a couple people just starting a bunch of Twitter accounts and then starting fights. And I want everybody to be really careful of that because we do have 2 very contentious elections in Canada and in the United States coming up, and they're going to do this to us again, and we are still not at the point where we can tell the difference.
Yep.
Because I had normal human people that talked to me regularly who were going after these Twitter accounts and not stopping to think, well, are they real or are they not? And that's not their fault. But it is something that absolutely occurred. And all the Islanders fans, the real ones that I talked to regularly that I heard from, were completely like, hey, that's really great that you guys did that. We had our moment and you have your moment, and that's awesome. And I don't think, the Sean Avery video of him being like, they're dirtbags or greaseballs or whatever, I don't think that's fair. I do think that most Islander fans were just a little burnt that Tavares left. They had their moment and they move on with their life. I don't think most of them are the guys tweeting homophobic remarks at you. I think I think there's something else afoot there, and I couldn't tell you what it is, but be careful of that on Twitter. That's all I would say.
I'm Adam Wild, and this has been my TED Talk.
That's my TED Talk.
Well, and it's one of those things where...
No, I know. I'm sorry, but I had to get it out there. I had to.
No, and I totally agree. Having lived in the U.S. for the past year, some of the things that I saw and heard in person dropped my jaw, quite frankly, because I can't believe that people think like that. And when I ask them, where are you getting your information? Oh, I get it on Twitter. I'm like, do you realize that half of the crap that you read is not true on Twitter?
Freedomeagle.blogspot.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Stop
Exactly.
And they just read a
that.
headline and it looks real, and then they run with that information.
Bingo. Or they run with a tweet that could have been real, could have been doctored. You could write up a fake tweet right now.
I probably will.
You could do a Steve
Smart
tweet that is completely
insider
fake.
man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you could take Steve and take his account, white it out, and then write in the same style that Twitter has.
Are you telling me that tweet about John Tavares having a puppy burger
was fake? Could have been
in Long Island?
Could have been.
And wiping his mouth, he used an Islanders jersey as a napkin. You're telling me that was fake?
And he had 2 real puppies as slippers too.
Wow.
I know. It's crazy.
But I think a lot of people...
I don't like him anymore. Trade him. Trade him.
Anyway, Thursday was a great moment for Islanders fans. Saturday was a great moment for Leaf fans.
Adam Wild.
I got to ask you, Rachel, from behind the scenes, because you've peeked behind the curtain before. If a player goes through a situation, and I understand that this is pretty unique, right?
Right.
But if a player goes through a situation like John, what he did or what happened, he signed with the team, the comeback to the old market isn't very good. What is the reaction internally?
I think they were prepared. So what's interesting is when I was with the Devils, I worked with a gentleman named Steve Pellegrini, and he's actually now the Islanders' assistant GM.
Oh, okay.
So he left New Jersey to
Was
to
he
be
with
loser.
Lou originally too?
Yes.
Okay.
So he was actually at the league. He, I believe, helped write the CBA with Brandon Pridham.
Wow.
So him and Pridham are known as sort of like the guys when it comes to contracts.
The
And
architects,
Yes.
sort of.
though Steve, probably one of the smartest hockey men I've met to date. And just when we were prepping for free agency, other teams are prepping. Every team goes through a prepping stage. When there's a hometown aspect involved, it's always a wild card because in hockey, movement isn't as promoted as it is in the NBA. There's not as much player movement, or you don't get a Bryce Harper like there is in the MLB who's leaving. Whereas in hockey, it's very you're loyal kind of thing.
Or at least that's how it has been.
That's how it has been. So I think throwing Toronto in and the fact that the team is actually good now and it is a destination that players want to come and John has the opportunity to come home. When you're preparing for something like that, you can prepare all of the salary, all of the bonus, all of the free bagels for life, all of the amenities and whatever you want to prepare. You cannot replicate the hometown. And as someone who lived in New Jersey, and I'm not nearly the stature of Tavares, I can definitely say there is no place like home.
Right.
For me, and for a lot of people, you can say, oh, I grew up in Long Island because I became a man there. Or I grew up, if you're McDavid and you're in Edmonton, I grew up in Edmonton. I became a man there. But at the end of the day, there is no place like home.
Right.
And so when you're preparing for something like that, you could have the best pitch ever. But I think they said Toronto actually offered less. Now, the signing bonus money is a different story because Toronto just has abilities that most other teams don't have.
Yeah.
Rangers, Chicago, Montreal, sort of. But the hometown thing is a wild card because you just don't know. If he wants to go home, he's going home. Just like, and I hate to say it, if Austin Matthews wants to go home, he's going home.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the same with any player, though. If they want to leave, they can't.
Yep.
Right? Like that. As soon as they're a UFA, they can do it.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, I should have clarified because while that was extremely interesting, what I meant with my question was, what do you think the 24 hours leading up to Saturday night's game were like internally?
Oh, you mean Thursday night's game? Like when he comes back?
No, Saturday night. So like the Leafs thinking about, well, I mean, I know Thursday.
They get their asses kicked by the Islanders.
Yeah.
Friday happens, and Saturday they're preparing for the game against Buffalo.
I think things have changed a little bit under Kyle, and the fact that they're more willing to promote their individual players, and you can see that in the different marketing campaigns. And after what happened on Thursday, which was, I mean, call it what it is, it was a piss-poor performance.
Yeah, it was terrible.
By the entire team, except for Tavares and Hyman, let's say. And I actually didn't really have a problem with how Garrett Sparks played.
Okay.
When you look at how the goals, and I'm sure we'll get into that
Oh, yeah,
as
I'd
well.
love to talk to you about that.
The
I want
bad
to know.
goals weren't until the game was long done.
Yeah.
And
But yes,
so I think when you're preparing for a game like that, you throw your hashtag out there, and anyone with half a marketing brain, which if you work for the Leafs, you have half of a marketing
Probably
brain,
at the
that
full one.
minimum.
Yeah.
You take that, and you should run with that, and that's what they did. So when you can find every opportunity to say, okay, he got this kind of reception where he was before, we need to show him as a fan base, as an organization, how much he's appreciated here.
Right.
So I would assume that in sort of the lead up to that, he was going to be in the starting lineup. That was probably a given. The fact that it was a home game was good. The fact that it was against Buffalo was good because it's very easily marketable. But when you're going through things like changing how you announce the starting lineup, putting him in the starting lineup, making him available at morning skate media, making him available before the game, things like that, they're very small things that, whether it's the PR staff or the marketing staff do, that they wouldn't normally do. But it markets the player as opposed to it's the Leafs versus the Sabres.
Right.
No, this is Matthews versus Eichel and John Tavares basically appreciation night.
Fair
That's
enough.
sort of how it was.
And when people say, oh, he's got $11 million a season, who cares? What do you say to that?
You have no idea what you're talking about. Because no amount of money amount of money can make somebody feel like they're at home. And I think I come across there as someone who may have lived that. There is no amount of money that can make someone feel like they're at home and where they're comfortable. You could have 11, you can have 50, you can have 100 million. You could do a lot with any amount of money that has 7 or 8 digits attached to it. If you are not comfortable in the environment that you are in, if you don't feel appreciated, does not matter.
Also, I think we lose a little bit of perspective when it comes to sports because you could just as easily say, he makes $650,000 a year.
What does he need?
What does he got to complete about? That's league min. Like, they're all caked. All of them.
And you also lose half of that to tax here.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You do.
300 or whatever.
Still $300,000. Hey, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just the dumbest, laziest. Oh, what does he got to be?
It's lazy. It's completely lazy. You're right. It's just a lazy narrative. And there's really not that big of a difference between 11 million and 10.1 million at that point. Like you're splitting hairs after tax. It's $500,000 maybe, and as long as you're happy, who cares?
Exactly.
Adam.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How did you feel when you learned that you inspired the lead to Steve Simmons' Sunday column?
Did it make it into his Sunday column?
Yeah, it's the lead of his.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jesse Reed.
Hang on a minute.
Let's hate read something. Here we go.
From Steve something Simmons. I don't know his middle name.
Steve W. Simmons.
Wayne. I don't know.
Give Islanders fans credit for their passion and their energy. They started booing John Tavares in the parking lot Thursday night and didn't stop until the game was over.
Parking lot.
And this apparent business of Leaf fans giving standing ovations for Tavares? Let's make him feel good. This hashtag Tavares Day TO thing borders on the embarrassing, doesn't it? Question mark.
So
Tavares,
one fan base is okay, the other is okay. Sorry.
Tavares
keep going.
doesn't need any further acknowledgement. He understands the business, and this mayor-driven attention is an overt fan's reaction of a participation trophy and nothing more than that. I say so.
Oh, so he just doesn't like the mayor. A lot of people think the mayor came up with it, which is fine because he's got way more followers than I do. But
if anyone was on the fence about this,
which I was admittedly on Friday.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I wasn't in support of this initially, but I saw how Adam was able to rally the fan base, and it turned out really
Jesse,
cool.
No, the fan base was able to rally. I didn't rally.
They
the
rallied
fan base.
around something that you started.
Sure.
Yeah.
Want to be on the
Which
side
is
of
really
Adam
cool.
there, or you want to be on the side of friend of the show, Steve Simmons?
Who all of a sudden decided that professional sport fandom was not allowed to be fun.
Well, you can't.
Guys?
You can't. How can you applaud? How can you applaud one fan group for booing and another fan group for just cheering positively? We didn't say F the Islanders. We just said, hey, John, we love you.
Adam, this is the same individual who has a decade-long history of saying the Air Canada Centre / Scotiabank Arena is a morgue because nobody cheers and nobody this. Okay, so the night they decide they're going to cheer, it's all of a sudden a crime? Pick a side.
Here's the issue with guys like Steve Simmons, and I told Andrew Walker this too, and I say this...
Who is very supportive.
I say this as a friend of Andrew. They don't stand for anything. Their job is to be heel. Steve Simmons doesn't plant his flag in the earth in any sort of positive way. That's his shtick.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to... I'm not saying Steve's a bad guy, because I've met him, he's not. But one thing that Steve does is he goes, here's the neutral thing that's happening, right? Mm-hmm. Here's the neutral thing. How can I spin the negative side out of this? Because I think that's naturally where he goes inside his own head, which is fine.
He's very good at it.
He's very good at it. He's developed a huge following, made a great career out of it. The point, though, is that Steve and guys like Steve, not Dangle, don't stand for anything. You can't pin... Because when you throw it back at them, when you say... Well, like if you say like, you know, there were Leaf fans going after Walker saying, well, you know, like the Canucks are any better, blah, 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 bringing up the riots and all that. And Andrew's like, I'm not a Canucks fan.
You can't beat someone in a sport without an end game.
That's right. Well, yeah. And that's the thing is you can't pin those guys because they don't that's not what they do.
There's no winning.
Does
There's no
Steve,
winning that.
Yeah.
You just leave it.
does Steve Simmons realize what fandom is, or does anyone here realize? Because in Europe, and I was just there, I got spit on at a soccer game like less than a month ago.
Oh, yeah.
What game were you at, by the way?
I went to Hertha Berlin versus Bayern and Liverpool versus Bayern. And let me tell you, the hostility, they light things on fire there on
Yeah.
a daily basis. So cheering and booing here is just
It's just normal.
yeah, it's a normal thing for them. And if you aren't cheering and booing at a game, they'll throw a beer on you because you're not contributing to the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that we're crapping all over Leafs fans or Islanders fans or whoever, Canes fans, for getting involved and having fun, they light things on fire across the pond. So we got nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
No,
I find at least Walker's creative and funny about it. Like, that's the thing. Like, I know Andrew, we're friends, I know where he's coming from. That's not Andrew's thing. With Steve, it's personal. There's a personal element to everything. And that's not against me. That's just that there's a personal in it it takes the fun out of the ribbing. You know what I mean?
So they play the bad guys. And yes, I agree. They play the bad guys. What's the term you use?
Ribbing?
Yeah, no, heel.
Oh, heel. Yeah,
Heel.
like a WWE heel.
Like from wrestling.
Yeah.
heel and face.
The good guy, the baby face,
Mm-hmm.
and the bad guy, the heel. No. Heel, I think this will drive it home a little bit more if you start labeling them as cape baiters.
Okay.
It's a term I just came up with, cape baiters. Because they throw a heel-like statement out there, but what it is bait for people with a cape who go, what? Because they don't exist without old Captain Cape coming to the rescue to say, what?
I'm offended.
I am for this person. Sir, as the hero of this situation, let me just point out you're wrong. And Walker's just going,
Yeah, reeling him in. Yeah. I mean, that's what he does, right?
loves it. Oh, Walker always goes back to shore with a full net.
Yes, that's a really good point. That's a very, very
Cape
good point.
baiters.
That's
Just remember, because heel only puts a term on Walker.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough of the situation. Ask yourself next time you see something that makes me mad or makes you mad, am I being cape baited right now?
We should do a poster, that we want you for the army, the Lord Kitchener thing with the
Yes.
mustache or
Yeah.
whatever. We should have Steve. Are you being cape
Are
baited?
you being cape baited right now?
And by the way,
Superman?
Leaf fans, if you hate Walker, he's done his job.
Yeah.
That's his
Good.
job. That's his job. So
Andrew, I hate you. Oh, thank you.
yeah, it's
Thank
true.
you for noticing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I
Steve, I hate you. He just starts. Oh.
on the positive end, though, I thought it was awesome. It was so nice to see Leaf fans do that, and that was great. The actual game it's so funny. It took a backseat. People barely know what went on, but the Leafs had, and I was at the game against Buffalo on Monday. The first period was awful on the Monday, and then they came back and had 3 goals in a minute and a half, and Kasperi Kapanen on a breakaway or whatever. It seemed again that they started slow. Hey, Rachel, I wanted to get your perspective on this because this start slow narrative, even Ian Tulloch did an article about it in The Athletic this weekend. It's very clear the Leafs don't perform well in the first period. I think that's abundantly clear, and it's been depressing for me because that's usually the only period I can catch before I have to go to bed these days.
I think we found the problem.
Yeah, that might be it. That might be it. Or maybe when I go to bed, that's when they get better.
Okay,
it's
so
better.
stop watching.
So stop watching the game. But yeah, so when you're looking at a hockey team, and that's an issue, and that's something you don't want to fall down early in the playoffs, right?
No.
No. So what do you do?
So I think one, it may have been a little bit overblown because now people are accustomed to, okay, the Leafs are starting slow. From my perspective, whatever you're saying in the first intermission, or whatever approach you take in the first intermission, maybe take that approach before the game.
Right.
Because it's not so much that they look ill-prepared, because when you actually watch them, the slow start isn't a product of their structure. They come out, they're very structured. It's just we're used to seeing a fast, quick, offensive producing, juggernaut team, and that's not the team that comes out. I don't quite know why that is, but if you pay relatively close attention, they come out and their structure is sound to start the game. And it might be one glaring mistake that costs them, but the rest of the structure is generally pretty good.
Are they conservative in the approach, though?
That's sort of what I think it is. I think they come out and instead of just stepping on the gas immediately in the way that a Calgary does, where they're like, let's go, we're going. They come out more conservative. They feel out sort of, Mike Babcock starts to feel out what matchup game do I want to play a matchup game sort of thing and which of my guys are going. So I think it's more of like a feeling out process because part of coaching is you have to know who's going and who's not going. And that's what actually Joel Quenneville is known to be very good at, is who's going and who's not going. You just got to get the feel of the bench. So I think where that's concerned, it's more about who's going tonight and who's not going. And the Leafs have this fortunate sort of issue in that they have so much skill that someone's going to be going.
Right.
So it's a matter of Mike figuring out who's going. And that's sort of where I think the slow start is, because you want to balance out when you have that much skill in your lineup, who's going and who's not. So I think that might sort of...
Rachel, I got to be honest with you. Your future in sports radio, while it seemed bright, it's just not hot takey enough. And
you're much better suited to work for an actual professional sports team. I regret to inform you.
That was the most measured and interesting take I've heard on that. Truly,
Okay.
That's really cool.
Also, it's given me something to look for tonight's game. Because you're like, Calgary comes right out of the gate. I'm like, they happen to be playing them. Oh my goodness.
And that's cool to hear that's you don't think about and you don't hear about, even with the GMs on the air, you don't hear about that. About Mike Babcock, that might be a thing he's doing. He's feeling guys out. He's checking. I never hear that talked about. It might be, talking about strike. I never hear that sort of thing coming. So that's really interesting to hear. Now, when you looked at last week, and this was a point we touched on. You have the game back to back. You got Edmonton. You got Buffalo Monday. Then you got Edmonton Wednesday, and then the Islanders Thursday. Now you get an injury. You get a late injury against Edmonton with Travis Dermott going down. Gardner's already not playing.
Right.
And so a little bit of hindsight 2020.
Kadri's already out. But Mike Babcock elects to take Freddie Anderson and put him in against the Oilers. A lot of people said, well, the Islanders are in first place in their division. The Oilers are in last place in every division that they could ever be put into ever. No, I'm kidding. They're not actually that bad. But it would make more sense, would it not, to have Garrett Sparks start against the weaker team?
Okay, so...
And you disagree with that, which I'm
yes.
Yeah.
So essentially, your job as a coach, as a team, is to win. Mm-hmm. You need to put the best lineup out there that gives you the best chance to win. And unless you are part of the Tampa Bay Lightning organization, the odds of you winning every back-to-back situation your team is in are slim to none. So let's say, I know some teams go into the back-to-back scenario with, okay, we need to win one game. So what is the game that we have the best chance to win in? And in this situation, remove the Tavares return to Long Island, because as a coach, you cannot consider that.
Right.
Because you're trying to win.
You'll start making mistakes if you do.
Exactly.
It really was a
So you've
random
got-
Thursday night game.
Yeah.
You've got Edmonton and you've got Long Island. And like you said, one is last and one is first. So immediately right there, what game do you have the best chance to win?
Edmonton.
Edmonton. Okay, now consider that Edmonton is the first night of a back-to-back and the Island is a second night of a back-to-back with travel. What game do you have a better chance to win?
Edmonton.
So what you would do is you put your starter in the game that you have the best chance to win, because it gives you that extra boost in terms of, okay, if we were 60% to win with Garrett, okay, we're 65 now with Freddie. And if you can say, I want 65% chance at these 2 points, I'm taking 65 over 60, because in hockey, things go sideways. And those 2 points could be critical. What if those are the 2 points at the end of the year that separate Toronto and Boston? Well, I put my starter in the game that I had the best chance to win in, and you deal with the repercussions of the back-to-back, because the odds of a team going 2 for 2 in a back-to-back situation is, like, they're incredibly low in the NHL. Remove the Tampa Bay Lightning. And so whether you have your backup in there or not, your team's going to be tired in the second half of a back-to-back. You're not going to run Freddie out 2 games in a row because he's already playing too much. And you don't want to hurt him. You never play your goalie 2 games in a row. Ever, ever, ever on a back-to-back unless he's hurt.
Yeah.
Like, unless you have to pull Sparks because he's hurt.
Right.
So you always put your goalie in the game that you have the best chance to win of the back-to-back.
Or you're Edmonton and your goalie gets pulled early in the first game and is well rested and can play the second one.
Yeah.
Well,
Which happened last week.
That's what some people were suggesting. The Leafs went up 4-1, 5-1. I think it was less than halfway through the game.
Right.
Is it worth considering taking Freddie out at that point, putting Sparks in, and having Freddie start the next night as well?
So at this point in the season, which is end of February, beginning of March, you already know, unless you have an 18-wheeler going off the cliff, that you're making the playoffs.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's not about a single game. It's about load management. And where Freddie's concerned, that's important. Because would you rather win a game on Long Island on February 28th, or do you want to win again in Game 7 at the TD Garden in Boston?
Right.
And you can't have
Hopefully you
Freddie
don't have
burned
Game
out.
7 at TD Garden.
Yeah, hopefully you don't have Game 7 at all because they're not so great at that lately.
Yeah.
So when you are considering that, you can't consider that situation. Mike has to just consider load management for Freddie and what game he has the best chance to win.
Are you alarmed by how they showed up the next night despite? Are you alarmed? Were you alarmed? I mean, I guess they showed up again and good in Buffalo, but
Yeah,
you know, when they...
My thing with the Oilers game was, or sorry, not the Oilers game, the Islanders game is they basically looked fine up until the second Hyman
Bingo.
goal got called back.
They gave up after that. I actually didn't really take issue with how they looked until
fine, yeah.
that second goal got called back, which that is just ridiculous
It's a
to
weird
begin
quirk in the
with.
rule for sure.
But you can't stop playing. You can't do that. And I thought after that goal was reversed, they were flat. They couldn't make a pass, whether it was in their own zone, whether it was in the offensive zone. Like, they looked like a different hockey team after that. It was like somebody kicked their dog and they just wanted to take their puck and go home kind of thing. That was alarming to me. I actually thought they started well. Which is bucking the trend for
I know.
most
Yeah,
games.
right?
So they came out like, we're going to play for Tavares. And then after that goal got called back, it was almost like the whole team went, whatever, we're going home.
They had me for a while going like, oh my God, they're going to win this game. They're not going to be able to get out of that building.
Right.
Can you imagine the Leafs win that game in like overtime or something?
So 5 days after the Leafs next play the Islanders, we're actually going to be doing, it'll be the last game of the season. So one of the last games, we got April 1st, we got the Islanders, and then we're going to be at Real Sports for the Crown Royal event. And I have a call with Crown Royal. People were asking, like, give me the details. How do I get in?
I
have
wanna
a call
come to
with
that.
Crown Royal at 4:30. Don't worry, Rachel, you will be there.
You've been
So
saying
Rachel will
for
be there. You can meet
weeks
Rachel
now.
there. What's
You've
that?
been saying for weeks now.
I know.
that you have the
I know.
details.
The dragons are coming. I know that Game of Thrones reference.
I have
been 8
never
seasons.
watched Game of Thrones.
Oh, guys, come on.
High five.
Steve's finally got 50% not watched on the show. So just keep it in mind, and you know, if I get the details before then, we'll tweet them out. So at least then you know. I know people have been waiting forever for these details. Just mark it off on your calendar. I'll tell you how to do it, and that'll be it. So I apologize for that. Now, I did want to ask you about the Leafs overall, Rachel, and I know we've kind of just focused on the Leafs thus far, and so apologies to anybody that comes to us for more than just that. But I want to read something from Drag Like Pull, and if my computer worked properly, I'd be able to pull this up a lot quicker. This is a stat that I find very, very interesting, and this is how I felt about this entire season, because we've said, Steve, and I think we said it in the first month, like, is anybody having fun yet? And the answer is no. And at that point, it was because, is Nylander going to get signed or traded? And then it was, is Matthews' contract good enough? Is he going to leave in 5 years? Like 5 years, I can't barely remember 5 years ago. That's when we started this show.
The Leafs.
David Clarkson was a Leaf.
Right. Yes. Thank you. He was a Leaf 3 years
Dave
ago.
Boland was a Leaf.
Yeah.
Jay McClement was a Leaf. Does anyone want to remember that? Okay,
like a
no.
while.
18 minute a night, Jay McClement.
Oh
And
my God.
also, like, the Leafs, didn't they set a record for points last season?
Yes.
In franchise history. Now,
They might do it again.
because of the pity point thing.
Yada,
It's a little
yada,
different.
yada.
Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada.
But they're on
They
pace
might
for the most wins.
ever.
Well, here's the stat. You guys ready? This is a good one.
Well, Tampa.
You'll like this. Dragline poll. I think Tampa's incredible season has made it less obvious how well some other teams have done this year. Toronto and Calgary are both on pace for more non-shootout wins than any team in the league had last year. Now, Tampa will obviously eclipse that too, and they probably already have because they're on pace for 60 wins, 61.
It's banana.
Tampa has
It's
like
like-
a 7.88 win percentage, which is unheard
Yeah,
of.
like the last
early
team was
2000s
Detroit.
Red Wings.
Yeah, 20 years ago when they lost to Colorado in the conference finals that year.
And there
That
was
was
no
the Paul
salary
Coffey,
cap.
Claude Lemieux, Chris Draper thing. What's that?
And there was no salary cap.
And there was no salary cap. Yeah, and they had some like future Hall of Famers like Mike Vernon, Paul Coffey, Dino Ciccarelli. They had a great team.
The number's not that crazy when you look at Winnipeg has 39 wins, Boston has 39 wins, and Leafs are only at 40 wins. So it's not that.
No, but what he's
No,
saying,
no,
It's a
what
non-shootout.
he's
Tampa.
saying,
We're talking about Tampa.
Yeah,
No, but you said the Leafs are on pace for
more
that many.
non-shootout wins as it comes.
so ROW,
Yeah.
regulation overtime wins, which I think that I know Boston has a few more shootout wins than the Leafs do. And that's actually, so Boston has less wins than Toronto does. It's just they have more pity points. And I think the pity points are silly, and I always have. But when you remove Tampa, completely
They're
remove
the
them, because they're
outlier.
by far the best team in the NHL this year.
Yeah.
Teams like Calgary, Toronto, Boston, Winnipeg, they're all having unbelievable seasons. It's just a fact no one's paying attention because Tampa has 50 wins in 66 games, which is
That's nuts.
like,
That's just insane.
what?
Yeah.
Does Buffalo have 50 wins in the last 3 seasons?
No. What was the one you pulled up last week? Jesse?
Tampa has reached 50 points twice before the Senators reached it once.
Oh
So
my
Tampa hit
God.
100 points before Ottawa had reached 50.
They have a 100-point scorer, I think I saw today, and Anaheim's leading scorer doesn't even have 40 yet.
What I love about
Yes.
Steve's
Something like
reaction to
that.
that is definitely something we talked about on the last show, but he's already forgotten it.
Oh, really?
You're like, oh my god!
3 hours! Adam!
That was a really long podcast, guys.
I get a text from Rachel, and she's like, "Why is the podcast 3 hours?" I'm like, "I think we just forgot to
We
stop.
literally just forgot.
We just didn't
We
look."
kept going, and you're like, yeah, I know. And I'm waiting for Jesse to get to the press conference, and you're like, so who's the next thing? And I'm like, Jesus. Like, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the time. I'm like, I can't do math very well, but I'm pretty sure we're at 2.5 hours.
It was the second longest ever after the Tavares signing episode, which was
It still
a
wasn't
little
the
bit-
longest?
No, that episode I think was like 5 minutes longer.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the
Really?
Tavares episode was like 3 hours and 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was
something
our
like
longest
that.
I did not even
ever.
remember that. That's
Yeah,
John
I didn't
Tavares
realize
makes
it was
us have
that long.
Because he
ago.
was like blackout.
Yeah,
Oh, I was happy.
you were a happy guy. Well,
very
rightfully so. He's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, Rachel, when you look around the league this year, and this is what I really want to ask you about kind of the rest of the teams, because you look at there are some surprises. You look at a team like the New York Islanders. They have now fallen to second place, but they got a game in hand on Washington, so if they won their next game, they'd be tied for first again.
Yeah.
You look at a team like Columbus, which has done the exact opposite of what we thought, and how Pittsburgh's performed and not been great. These teams, I'm just gonna name off some teams,
Yeah.
and I want to know if they're for real, or if their results are for real.
So
Does
can I
that make
say
sense?
something about Pittsburgh?
Let's start with Pittsburgh.
Anyone who bets against Sidney Crosby, silly goose. Don't do it.
Okay,
I
Don't
said
do
that
it.
last episode. I
you
remember
did.
that.
You did say that.
You never bet against Sidney Crosby. It's always a bad idea. The team hasn't missed the playoffs since he's been here.
Mm-hmm.
And did I see that he got like 1,200 points or something like that?
Yeah, this is the first time since 2011 he's been ahead of Ovechkin in career points.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, in career points. They're both.
Like, you just can't. Pittsburgh always seems to start slow, but then February and March roll around, and all
So
of
like
a
the
sudden
Yankees.
they turn into this beast.
Yeah.
And they're unstoppable. They have so many players that just go like this. And they flip the switch. They've got Malkin, Crosby, Letang. Murray has had a down season, but he's starting to come back. I have some questions about the Johnson-Goodbranson pairing.
Yeah, so I have
They're
some
playing
questions.
together, eh?
They are putting the
Awesome.
Gaston Decision's tweet was like, that was so perfect. It's like, this could legitimately be the worst pairing in the NHL, and they actually put them together.
I love it.
So, what? Okay, you've dealt with the old school mindset. in hockey, and I know it's frustrating for you. I know it's a sore point when we can't really get too into it, but for you, if you could imagine what Jim Rutherford's thought process is, what would it have been? Because I think Pittsburgh fans were a little bit like, why are we signing Jack Johnson to this much money? And then the Gabranson trade, and like, okay, why are we doing this?
Okay, I don't have an answer for Jack Johnson because I did a lot of research while I was employed and still could not find an answer. The Goodbranson one, I actually have a theory.
Okay.
Okay.
The game Pittsburgh played before the Goodbranson trade, they got dummied. And I'm not talking on scoreboard. Sidney Crosby was fighting, and based on his health history,
concussions,
that's
and stuff,
not somebody you want fighting.
No. Well, and Letang, too.
And Letang. So if you're Pittsburgh, your premier priority is to make sure that 87, 71, and 58 are off limits. Mm-hmm. And other teams don't quite have this luxury because Sidney Crosby doesn't play for every hockey team. So bringing Goodbranson in, he is a serviceable 5'6" defenseman. He was playing up in the lineup on the top pair or the second pair. He can't play there. Like, he just can't. But he's, like Ron Hainsey, he's very good if you put him in sheltered minutes in the bottom row, and he is a deterrent. And I've watched Pittsburgh the last couple games because I've wanted to see. And when he's sort of lurking, no one's touched Crosby.
So that
no
does
one's
exist.
touched Malcolm. Oh, it absolutely exists.
Okay.
Especially where those guys are concerned. Now, if you just have your sort of, oh, he's a good player type of thing, you don't need to go out and acquire this kind of player. Goodbranson can still be effective as a 5'6" defenseman. And if you have injuries in the playoffs, which often happens.
Pittsburgh's the perfect example.
Exactly. He can step up if he really needs to. Like, he's got tools. He's just not as fleet of foot, but neither were half the defensemen that Pittsburgh iced 2 years ago in their Stanley Cup run.
That was one of the most mystifying
Ron
things
Hainsey was on the top pairing.
Yeah. And
it was
scoring
crazy.
end-to-end amazing Dangle goals.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So Goodbranson is an effective D when he's in sheltered minutes, and he can protect.
Okay.
Because whether he is a deterrent or not, he's not letting 87 drop the gloves ever for the rest of the season. Whereas before he came in, there was nobody on the ice to do that. Now, Sid's on the ice, he's getting hot and bothered by someone. Goodbranson can just grab him and
pull him out.
That's enough of that. Thank you.
Are the Islanders for real? Now, that doesn't mean that they won't. Based on your answer, they're going to make. I would cap their playoff. They're going to make the playoffs.
I would agree.
Next year.
So my concern with the Islanders is, and they are playing very well. It's a Trotz coach team. I think if John Cooper wasn't having the season he's having, Trotz would have been a lock for the Jack Adams. Just if you watch how the Islanders play, it's completely different. I just don't know if that goaltending is as good as it's playing right now. Like, I think the structure around them is very good because it's a Trotz system. I think the players that they've got, I mean, you've got your young guys who are playing very well. But if Anders Lee or Brock Nelson or any of those guys leave as free agents, that's a big issue. But my biggest question mark is, can Robin Lehner have another season like this, or is this the outlier? Like, is his poor play the outlier, or is this the outlier? Or is he... I think he's more somewhere in between. So the question...
Is that an NHL starter?
I think he's one of the 1A, 1B types. He's not playing... He's not a Freddie. He's not a Carey Price. But he can be he plays 50, another guy plays 32. Or he plays 45, another guy plays...
And to the Islanders' credit, though, that's exactly how he's been deployed. What's been amazing to me is, like, I've seen Robin Lehner play well before.
Yeah.
What's been amazing to me is, dude, Thomas Greiss, he was terrible last season.
Which that's where the questions lay.
That's a 930 goaltender this year.
Exactly. And I think it's got a lot to do with Trotz's system because they do keep the shots to the outside, and they are playing with injuries right now, but the players are doing a very good job of playing his system, and he's got a great system. Like, I did analysis on Barry Trotz's system. It's a top top tier system.
And that's a coach that seems to be worth his money, and I believe it's $4 million a year they're paying him. Like
he's well worth his money. And so I think from that perspective, the Islanders are for real in the fact that their coach, this is not an outlier for him. He is a great coach.
Right.
Matt Barzal, Anthony Beauvillier, like all of their young players, they're legitimately good players. Like Matt Barzal is a franchise player. Mm-hmm. The question is, does their goaltending hold up?
Now, if this summer they go and get Bobrovsky.
Oh, then that's completely different.
Okay. All right. The Carolina Hurricanes, who for years I've been like, they're going to make it. This is their year. It looks like they're third right now in the division.
I think if they make it to the playoffs, it's in the second wild card spot.
Okay.
I think that the Metro's sort of a disaster in the fact that it's just teams are going up and down. Some teams are playing well. They go through spurts. I obviously have a question about Carolina's goaltending as well. But one player that just doesn't get talked about enough is Sebastian Aho. Mm-hmm. He is one of the NHL's, him and Braden Point, they are, in terms of young stars, they're it. Mm-hmm. Like, Sebastian Aho, if Carolina makes the playoffs, needs to be considered for some award because he has been absolutely spectacular this year.
It's Kevin BX's son's favorite player.
I think if Carolina's goaltending holds up, they make it in the second wild card spot, and then they play Tampa and get killed.
Yeah, right.
Since December 30th, Carolina is 21-6-1.
Yeah. So
wow.
But they've gotten crazy goaltending.
Yeah.
What day was the Niederreiter?
Curtis McElhinney.
Yeah, Curtis McElhinney.
I talked about that trade on the PDO cast. That was a great trade for Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great trade.
Really good, yeah.
I have a question. So regarding Carolina, because it's the team I've heard about this the most with, is there such a thing in the National Hockey League as gaming Corsi? Do you think? Teams that just go, you know what, I got no option here, so I'm just going to dump it on net because it'll look great to all those bloggers in their basement.
No. However, that last sentence is important. It is better, and Carolina does this, is one of the teams that does this. It is better if, first of all, don't dump the puck in. Stop doing that. Retain possession. But if you're tired, you're going off on a line change, it is better to put the puck on net than it is to dump it in the corner, because we've seen in hockey, Leafs fans especially with Vesa Toskala, anything can happen. So you're better to throw it on net, and what if it bounces? What if the goalie's sleeping?
Yeah,
like,
if it's a rebound even.
Anything.
Something.
So it's not so much gaming Corsi as it is, John Hines calls it a shot-first mentality, and he talks about it publicly all the time. Get the puck to the net. I don't care where you are on the ice. Get the puck to the net. Funnel the puck to the net. So even if you're going on a line change, put the puck on net. I don't want to see it in the corner. Put it on net. And so it's not gaming Corsi. It's actually put the puck on net because anything can happen.
Before we get to our next thing, I do have to quickly mention one of our sponsors. That'd be Rich Wallets. You see one of these? You have one of these?
I don't, but all of my guy friends have
They're
one.
the best. They are the best. So basically, we want to hook you up with 10% off this. Rachel, that includes you. The code is SDP at richwallets.com. But essentially, the idea is to get rid of the clutter, right? I got it here. This is everything I need to carry. Jesse's got his. Steve got rid of his big Italian guy wallet, and he has that. And look at how many. Like, you got fewer cards than I do. I just recently made room for an Optimum card, and the there you go, and the Triangle one, which is the Canadian Tire one. But other than that, this is it. And it comes with the little screwdriver. These are lifetime warranty. I'm banging it against the thing.
It's
Nothing's
not
gonna
obnoxious
happen.
at all.
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and yes, they are. Quite frankly, there have been people who are like, well, that's a lot of money for a wallet. Well, yeah. So your average wallet costs you $20-$25 or maybe cheaper, but you get rid of it in 6 months to a year. The idea with this is it's supposed to last for 10 to 15 or more. There is a lifetime warranty on it, but it's one of those things that I have to tell you, genuinely, we enjoy endorsing this, genuinely enjoy talking about it, because genuinely, We all use it and love it.
I might have to purchase one of these for my teenage brother who literally breaks everything.
There you go. As long as he doesn't lose it.
Well, I mean...
Yeah, right? So the code is SDP. That's your promo code to get you 10% off one of these Ridge wallets. Hook yourself up and organize your life a little bit easier. It's better.
Organize your life.
Organize you. Now, Rachel, I do want to talk to you about Columbus, too, because they went crazy. Jarmo was nuts. Now, do you think, A, they were smart to do it, B, what do you think the issue has been? Because they're a team that on paper is much better than 75 points through 65 games.
So wait, you want to know if they're going to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
Will Jarmo be there? Sorry.
I think they're right to go for it. I really do. Because Columbus is sort of in this unique spot where your star goaltender and one of the best players in the league in Artemi Panarin, and admittedly, I like Panarin maybe a lot more than other people do, are UFAs. Mm-hmm. So the issue with Columbus is I don't believe they've ever won a playoff series. So you're kind of at this awkward point with your fans where it's sort of, do we believe? You need to give us something to cheer about. Mm-hmm. So by going for it, at least it says to your fans, we're going for it. Like, we want to give you guys something because we don't know if we're keeping Bobrovsky and we don't know if we're keeping Panarin. So, at the very minimum, we're going to do our very best to make sure that this year we give you something. Because at the end of the day, that's what sells tickets.
Right.
You're going to show up. If they would have traded Bobrovsky and Panarin, well, maybe not Bobrovsky because he is the no trade. But if you're going to trade Panarin, they don't have really a real marketing tool. Artemi Panarin is a real marketing tool in a non-hockey market because he is appointment viewing.
Yeah.
Because he's just so good. So they were right to go for it. Would I have given up that many assets? Probably not. But the fact that they were able to acquire Duchesne now means they have depth. Mm-hmm. When you've got Boone Jenner, who I think is really underrated, playing on your fourth line, that's pretty strong. And so I think by going for it, they have the depth. Bobrovsky, as long as he plays like Bobrovsky can play, he's capable of stealing a series. And especially in the Metro where things are really up in the air.
Yeah, they are.
If they make it in and don't have to play Tampa, I actually think they could do some damage in their division.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think once you...
What about if they end up playing Pittsburgh again? Although I don't know if that's very possible.
That's a rivalry that is just going to be... That's not going to be a nice series because now you've got Boone Jenner, you've got Eric Goodbranson. It's just...
Jack Johnson revenge.
That's going to be a nasty series. I would love to see it. Mm-hmm. In the same way I'd love to see a Leafs Islanders series.
Yes.
But I think with Columbus, the key with them is how they play down the stretch. But I think that they're one of those teams, and Torts is definitely one of those coaches that whenever they get into the playoffs, voodoo happens. And with the playoffs, anything can happen, as we've seen. I think they can do damage in the playoffs because they have the goaltender.
So they have to get there.
So they have the goaltender, and they have Duchesne and Panarin. And that's a real dangerous power play you're looking at. So if you get a couple key saves, Panarin's that player that he can do it by himself. He just has to have one rush, and there's your winning goal. Amazing. Right? And when you think about it, they almost did it last year against Washington, and people forget.
Yeah, they almost did one goal.
We bring it up every show.
A shin pad.
Yeah.
Right? So I think Columbus, once they sort of, and what a lot of people miss, and this is why you got to give Dubas credit for bringing Muzzin in early, is it takes a little bit for acclimation. Like, Duchesne's not just going to plop into the lineup and all of a sudden everything's going to be fine and dandy. He's got to get used to the new teammates. He's got to get used to the new system. Same with Dangle. So that takes probably 3 or 4 weeks.
Plekanec didn't show up till game 2.
And he was one of the best players in the series.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
But when these guys get adjusted, they get acclimated, they're really good players. And God forbid Panarin and Duchesne find any sort of chemistry on the power play. Look out.
Okay.
So that was a really nice conversation. Let's ruin it. Let's go full dark scenario. Columbus misses the playoffs. None of the four stay. Panarin leaves. Bobrovsky leaves. Duchesne leaves. Dzingel leaves. They fire Jarmo Kekalainen.
Yes.
And they go, Rachel, here's an offer you can't refuse. You're now the GM of the Columbus Blue Jackets. What do you spend your summer doing?
Got a lot of cap room.
Got a lot of cap?
You have a lot of cap room. So at that point, you look at. I believe they traded their first round pick, but it is lottery protected.
Yes.
Right.
It is top 3 protected.
It's top 3 protected. So if they win the lottery, that's a completely different story, because then you're getting one of Hughes, Kakko, or Cousins, or Byram, Dak, whoever you slice it. You're getting a really good player in the top 5. But at that point, you need to start with the asset recoup, and you need to have players. First of all, you have to hit the floor, right? And
Wow.
if those players leave, you have to hit the floor.
So it's that conversation, eh?
Yeah, so it's
right.
who are we throwing money at?
They'd have, if just to butt in, and I apologize, they'd have $29,847,000 to spend.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. So you can do a couple of things. You can throw money at a big free agent, and say, come on a 2 or 3 year contract, or come on a 1 or 2 year kind of deal. But then you can also do you sign undervalued players, and you either trade them or you reward them. So a perfect example is actually like a guy like Nick Patan, right? Let's say you sign a guy like Nick Patan, and because he's going to get his opportunity to play middle 6, probably top 6, if you are icing a team like that, then he's going to up his value. You can then either keep him or you can trade him to recoup assets, because I think they only have a 3rd and a 7th in the draft this year. So
Yeah.
there's your big issue, is you're kind of screwed for this draft. Like,
Right.
you just call it what it is. Like, you're kind of screwed. But,
And you can't really even afford to trade anybody to get picks back.
right.
Because you got to ice a team.
Because you got to ice
But
a
do
team.
you do an offer sheet? Like, you look at
There's no picks.
Yes.
if there's any
You offer
picks.
Yeah, you
sheet,
need your
and
own
I'm
picks, right?
going to move in this direction. You offer sheet Kasperi Kapanen.
But you don't have the picks. You don't have the picks.
No.
Yeah,
you don't
you
have the
need
picks.
your own
You need
picks.
first and third, don't you?
Yeah.
At $4
Then
million.
Or something.
They have their first and third next year, do they not? Oh no, they traded that too.
Yeah.
No, in this scenario, they weren't able to re-sign Matt Duchesne, so they would have their first. They don't have their second,
Right.
but I think they have their third. So they would have
Right.
their first and third.
So then you could offer sheet Kapanen, you could offer sheet Janssen. They
They don't
not,
have next year's third.
They don't have next year's
No.
third.
No.
Oh,
Yo,
so
what do they have?
can't.
Yeah.
They have a conditional first, depending on
Right.
the Matt Duchesne. The second's gone. They don't have a third. They have a fourth. The fifth is on condition. And they have a 6 and 7.
So they've sort of put themselves
Yikes.
in a position where they.
Can't
That's
really
a great
offer
strategy
sheet.
that you
Well,
came
'cause
up
then
with,
you
and they
could
can't
go
even
after
do it.
Braden Point, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody like Tampa's gonna have to unload someone if they're gonna sign Braden Point, right? So maybe you take advantage of that. You take advantage of other teams' issues. So Toronto, whether we like it or not, are gonna have some issues. So you need to identify teams, Toronto, Tampa, that are going to have issues re-signing some of their young players, and you need to identify them, and whether you lowball them with an offer, because getting something,
Like a Zaitsev plus a prospect.
bingo. So let's say you can take Nikita Zaitsev from Toronto, which I think Dubas is going to look to move that contract. But you have to package it with Jeremy
nice.
Bracco.
Oh,
That hurts.
I don't
That
like
is
that.
not nice, right? But let's say you get somebody in return that can play in your bottom 6. So the issue there is you get the Zaitsev contract off your books, and in Columbus you take that contract. So now you have something to hit the floor with, at least, right?
Or like would you get like a Josh Anderson or
a
Bjorkstrand?
Patrick Marleau.
Oh, I mean, sorry, from Columbus back. I'm thinking, but yeah.
Mike Babcock would love Josh Anderson.
Yeah, I think he would.
love Josh Anderson.
It's better than we've given him credit for on the show.
Totally.
Yeah, but at that point you'd be looking at young players. You'd be looking to bring in as much as you can, contract wise. They're really in trouble if they miss the playoffs.
Okay, so they got to make
and they
it.
leave. Like if they keep, I'm of the mindset that I think Bobrovsky is leaving. Like I think he's leaving.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think Duchesne might stay. It depends.
Well, I think they have to keep him. So I
They
think
need
whatever,
to keep at least one, if not two, to
And
make this worth it.
I think that whatever anybody else offers, if I'm Kekalainen, I go, well, I'm going to offer more.
Well, but
Because you can.
Yeah, because you can and you should.
Like,
out of
what
the
is
four-
stopping them from offering Artemi Panarin $13 million?
Nothing. And he would be worth it, I would think, wouldn't you?
And out of the four, though, there's the least incentive to keep Duchesne because then you have to give up another first.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very true. Very,
I
very
don't believe that he's going to go back to Ottawa. I just don't.
Oh,
Would
no, I
you
don't
wanna
believe that
sign in
narrative at all.
Ottawa
That's
right now?
BS. Yeah, no, I don't think so. If he wanted to... Listen, there are people who believe that Matt Duchesne won't get 8x8 in the free agent market, and I think they're nuts. That guy...
Oh, he will.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. He's a center who scores a clip under what Tavares is scoring. Like,
Well-
he's a pretty good player.
I think the condition actually on the Duchesne trade is he has to re-sign with them before he hits free agency. So if he decides July 3rd that he wants to sign with Columbus, they don't owe Ottawa the pick.
Interesting.
Like, it has to be in that window. I think that's part of it. I'm not 100% sure on that because that is... Once he's a free agent, he's a free agent. You're not re-signing anymore
Right.
because you're not
Really?
eligible for the 8th year.
I mean, I believe you.
So once you become a free agent,
Like
you are
Tavares
not
did.
eligible for the eighth year, even with your home team.
Right. So when
Right.
Tavares expired at midnight, even if he went back and signed in Long Island, he could only get 7 years
7
because
years.
he's technically
right.
not a part of that team anymore.
Oh, that's an interesting clause. Okay.
Neat little wrinkle.
So if they just say, hey, listen, can you just wait till midnight? We'll get you your contract.
And it's 7 years.
Yeah. And we'll give you 9 to make up for the 8 that the money you're going to lose on the 8th year.
Right.
Or
We'll give you
something.
9 million a year.
Something like that. I don't know if Duchesne resigns in Columbus. I mean, I am banging down the door trying to keep Panarin because he's the most important there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He's one of the best players in the league, but he
Well,
plays in
keep him.
Columbus and nobody really realizes it. If that guy played with the Rangers, he would be in Hart conversations and whatever else you could name
Superstar.
because he's incredible.
So how did we all miss a player like that? Like, is the late bloomer stuff true? Or, like, because he was signed, I want to say, by the Blackhawks when he was 24.
The Leafs were actually after him the year before that, and
Were they
didn't
really?
want to come over. Yeah.
Oh.
Could
And
you
well, they
imagine
were
Artemi
garbage.
Panarin playing with Phil Kessel?
Oh my God. When I think of it like that, I'm like this Leafs team would be great. That Leafs team, I'm like, yeah, he'd have been traded.
Dude, I forget about Phil Kessel ever being a Leaf. I'm happy with him being an Oiler, a Penguin. Oh my God, an Oiler. God, the media would tear him apart there. But how did they miss Artemi Panarin for so long? Because he tore the KHL apart for a few years.
Right. I think it was less. First of all, I don't think the KHL was as heavily scouted even like the last 5 years. I know that the Leafs, the Wings, like the teams with like the bigger budgets were definitely the first over there. I also know that I think more than a few teams still don't have a full-time European scout, which is crazy when you
That's
think about
nuts.
it.
That's nuts.
Is it just the money?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, because traveling around Russia is not cheap.
yeah, I can imagine.
Because it's like a 12-hour flight from Riga to Magnitogorsk. Or
They're
wherever
ridiculous.
Also, I
prices.
think it takes a certain kind of person to be able to do that job.
That too.
And there were a
So-
couple KHL teams in East Russia,
Right.
To the point where they're now folding them, I
Right.
think, and they're just going to put a team in Japan
Yeah.
because it's the difference actually isn't that great.
So that's sort of how I think he went under the radar. And the KHL and the NHL have this deal through the IHF. And I think they're a lot more strict about it than is sort of publicly known. I know that Russian teams aren't even fans of when NHL teams approach the players that are under contract. So when it was rumored that like Zaitsev was coming over, for example, but the year before, I know that the KHL was not happy about that.
Ozhiganov,
Ozhiganov, because
healthy scratch.
exactly. So then they're very protective of NHL teams even talking to their players. So a guy like Panarin, who, I mean, let's face it, Nikita Zaitsev and Igor Ozhiganov, they're NHL players. They are not Artemi Panarin.
No.
So you'd be all the more protective of a player like that. And so I just think that he probably played sheltered. He was definitely a late bloomer because I don't think he was drafted.
No, he wasn't. No.
And so it could be a case of late bloomer. They're changing their development system over there, and they were probably very protective of him. That would be what I would say.
Interesting. Okay. I've gotten a lot of tweets recently. People down on the Leafs getting all these European guys. Like they go Per Lindholm and Nikita Soshnikov and Igor Ozhiganov and Nikita Zaitsev. I'm like, guys, those are all players they got for free. Like, ignore the contract situation. I think, people are down on Zaitsev, obviously, for that reason.
But it's the contract. It's not that he's a bad hockey player. It's the contract.
He's clearly got the tools.
He's in the NHL, and he cost no assets. Soshnikov played NHL games for you. No assets. And you got a fourth back. Igor Ozhiganov, NHL games.
Per Lindholm, you got Nick Petan.
Lindholm, you got Nick Petan. Like, those are... And they're all free. The Brian Burke free wallet conversation.
Yeah. You got even a guy like Jonas Gustafsson. You might have been the best, but would you rather go spend a second-round pick trying to acquire a backup goalie? Like, that's not
Mikko
very
Koskinen.
good.
Like, oh, boy.
God knows. Dude.
Yeah, that's bad. That's a rough one. I want to ask you, I want to go to the Western Conference.
Okay.
Actually, quickly, I want to go to on two teams. Quick on two teams.
Okay.
Buffalo, what's wrong?
They just haven't found their stride yet.
Okay. They have enough talent, though, right?
Yes.
Florida.
They're preparing probably to gear up for Panarin Bobrovsky.
Okay.
And Sasha Barkov should slam dunk win the Selke this year, and it should not be close.
Over Bergeron, eh?
Yep. Slam dunk.
Yep.
Like, not even a discussion is he the best defensive forward in the NHL.
There you go.
What are the Florida Panthers?
And what will they be after the signing? So that's A and then B.
I don't know because they've flip-flopped. So they went from hockey man to we're going to listen to smart people to the famous quote from Dale Talon, like, I left and look what happened, or whatever he said.
After 1 year.
Yeah. And the team, if you actually look at it, was they were trending upwards. But then you bring back Goodbranson, and
You know what I just realized for the first time, because I'm stupid? Eric Goodbranson and Jared McCann are on the same team.
Oh, yeah.
They're both on the Penguins.
Yeah, McCann's on the Penguins.
yeah, they are.
I just realized that.
That's a good point.
That's amazing.
I think that because those guys, the computer boys, are still technically employed by the Florida Panthers. So they're still clearly listening to them, or they wouldn't be paying them.
Right.
And so I don't really know what direction the Panthers are going, but if they haven't already, they need to pick a direction. Whether it's we're going the Dale Talon hockey man way, which Dale Talon did build the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yes, he did.
So the man does know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Or and this is the whole thing, are we going to listen to new ideas? And there doesn't seem to be an appetite for that right now. So I think that Florida's sort of caught in the middle, and they're wasting the best years of Barkov's career right now. Like,
they sure are.
It's incredible. It's like Edmonton. How are you bad with the nuclear weapon?
It's not even just
So the
McDavid,
Panthers
that
are
three-headed monster they have. Nugent Hopkins is having a fantastic season.
Yeah. So it's the Florida Panthers need to figure out what they are. They need to pick a direction, and they need to go in only that direction.
Right.
Right? It's like Lou. We have a plan. This is the plan. The plan might change every day, but we're going in this direction. We're not going in this direction. Right? We're picking a direction, and if we have to alter the plan to continue to go in this direction, we're sticking with that direction.
Okay.
Right? But they need to pick a direction, if they haven't already, and then they need to make moves based on that.
We're going to move over to the West. And a lot of the teams I'm going to ask you about are not playoff teams.
Okay.
Because to me, the most fascinating part of the West are the teams not in it.
Well, that's what we do on the show. We try to fix teams.
Yeah, well,
for some reason.
I mean, obviously, we know what Winnipeg is. We know what Nashville is. St. Louis has been a nice surprise, but I think we all sort of expected St. Louis to be good, given that top 6, top 8, top 9.
Yeah.
anomaly was when they were
Calgary,
bad.
San Jose, Vegas. I mean, Vegas is I guess, of those three, the most surprising, but they were Stanley Cup finalists last year, so there's not much story there. Then there's the horseshit Dallas Stars, which are
That was my favorite quote of all time.
the first wild card team. And then there's Steve's horseshit team, the Minnesota Wild, which are the second wild card team right now. 2 points behind them are the Arizona Coyotes.
Rick Tocchet nomination for Jack Adams.
You think so?
Yeah.
Because I suggested, like, these players, Max Domi and Dylan Strome, two players that just dead zone under him.
Yep.
They go on and they have success. What do you look at when you look at that situation? And you look at now, the Coyotes have had unbelievable injuries in the last couple of years, especially to guys like Ranta.
Anti-Ranta.
Yeah, who's important. But
well, think about it. Like, where would the Leafs be without Freddie? You would probably be crying on the desk right now.
Yeah.
Right? So the fact that the Coyotes missed a big chunk of the year without Antti-Ranta, Jason Demers, OEL,
Halmerson, I think.
Halmerson, like, yeah, it's pretty thin. And Christian Dvorak's been out for most, if not all, of the year.
Gouch didn't even start the year.
Galchenyuk was out.
Yeah.
And then they traded, I think Dylan Strome just needed a different scenery.
Right.
Because he's looked great. Like, he scored last night with the Brinkat. And so, honestly, with Arizona, I think they're finally at the point now where they're ready to make some noise. Like, Clayton Keller is just
he's unbelievable.
Incredible hockey player. That was actually one of my favorite players in that draft, because that was a Matthews draft. And I actually liked him more than I liked Dubois, more than I liked Puljujarvi. I loved Patrick Laine, but not over Austin Matthews. But I knew that if the Leafs had, let's say, like the 4th or 5th pick,
they would be okay.
Clayton Keller probably would have been the pick. And man, oh man, like, that guy he's a really good hockey player. So I think that with Ranta being out, they're still getting like average goaltending, if not better. And that's really important. They finally, I think they just got the Mares back. So their decor is finally starting to come together. They play a good system, like very much like the Islanders. They play a very structured system. And that's when you have a team that has that many injuries, the only way that team is going to succeed without some of their more talented players is with the structure.
Right. Okay.
So I think Arizona, now that they're starting to get healthy, they just might get in.
What are the Colorado Avalanche?
A one-line team.
So are the Boston Bruins, though. Ish. I don't think that's fair to the Bruins, maybe.
Yeah, at least the Bruins have DeBrusk and Krejci and
even Backus.
And
Coyle now.
They have Johansson now, which Marcus Johansson, I might be the president of his fan club.
Really? What do you like about it?
Well, they got him from the Devils, yeah.
Yeah, okay, this is gonna be like a hockey man thing. Probably one of the nicest hockey players I've ever met. So polite, so caring, all about his teammates, all about getting to know everyone, make sure the staff is taken care of. He would greet the security guard at the door every single day. Like, that's just, he's Swedish, so he's just nice all the time. And the problem is he's had some really bad luck with injuries. He got elbowed in the head by his now teammate Brad Marchand, and I remember that it was really dirty and just incredible that there was no big discipline around that, because you can't just chicken wing a dude and he gets a concussion for 3 months kind of thing. But I like Marcus Johansson because he can play the half wall on the power play, or he can play down low, which is where he played in Washington. And he's really good at feeding the puck. And he doesn't have to be the shooter in Boston because they have Pasternak. So if he just sits there and feeds Pasternak or DeBrusk on the second unit, that's really dangerous.
DeBrusk, the Leaf killer.
Oh, God.
Oh my God.
Right, so Marcus Johansson is he's very good in transition. He's really good in the offensive end. In terms of getting the puck to the middle, he actually might be one of the best at that.
They say Nylander's really good at that too, the neutral zone.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
I don't need any numbers to tell me that.
I was having that discussion the other day on Twitter. Like, I didn't need any numbers to be like, Nylander probably leads the team in exits and entries right now, right?
Yeah, he does pretty much every game. But Johansson actually is very good at getting the puck to the middle, which you want. He's a playmaker. He's not a shooter. So you want him playing with a guy like DeBrusk. He's perfect for playing with a guy like DeBrusk because he just gets the puck to the middle all the time. And I don't need any numbers to tell me. I knew that in Washington. And that's why Ovechkin loved him. Right. And that's why Kuznetsov loved him. So with that, I think that's a big boost. Like, that was a really good move by Boston. Mm-hmm. But with Colorado, they're by definition like the one-line team. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Sam Girard. I think he's going to be just a phenomenal. Like, he is going to be a top pairing defenseman for a very long time in this league. But he's still developing. Like, the kid's, I think he's 21, maybe 22. Now, you've got Nathan McKinnon on one of the best contracts in the NHL. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to pay Mikko Rantanen, probably in the neighborhood of 9 or 10. And you got Landeskog, who's having a great year. The problem is they're just not getting support underneath. And that's a really big issue.
Who did they get at the deadline? Again, they got, was it Brassard?
Yes.
Did they get Brassard?
Yeah, because they were playing Florida that night. And then they traded for Brassard, and then Brassard scored against them. It was great.
Now, if you look at their page, you said 9 to 10 million for Rantanen.
Yeah.
They still have 23 million after that they can spend.
Yeah,
so they could also be big buyers. Plus a good draft pick.
When is McKinnon's contract until?
It's like 3 or 4 more years.
Oh,
22, 23.
So good.
Ends in 2023.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, isn't that nuts? To think with that.
Yeah, so I think that they're just a one-line team. They just don't have enough depth.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go.
Expanding on, so you looked at like Marcus Johansson and go, oh, he's perfect for Jake DeBrusk. So are you watching the trade deadline going, I understand why you made that trade, but that's not a great fit, and that's perfect, and stuff like that?
Yes. Somebody told me this would happen. The guy who gave me my first job in hockey told me that this would happen. Once you work in hockey and you watch hockey from a video perspective, hockey is wrecked as a fan because you are incapable of watching it from a fan perspective, because now I watch the trade deadline exactly like that. Marcus Johansson would be perfect for this team because they have this player and this is where he would slot. Not, hey, look, my team got Marcus Johansson.
Right.
Whereas when the Leafs got Nick Petan and traded Per Lindholm, I was like, okay, perfect. He will be great on the second power play unit if Mike plays him because you've got Tyler Ennis. I really want Babcock to roll a line of Moore, Ennis, Petan. Mm-hmm. I just don't think he will do it because Freddie Gauthier is 6'5" on every shift. But when they got Petan, I said, okay, now look, he wasn't playing in Winnipeg. Per Lindholm is a penalty killer. He's a depth forward. Winnipeg's going to need depth when they're playing Nashville in the second round because we all know that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it was a good fit for both teams, and that's how I watch a trade deadline now. I don't watch it like, oh, what did they give up, or was this an even trade? Because it might not look even on the outset, but when you consider this is where he's going to fit, and if he makes player X better, like if the Leafs went out and acquired someone and they paid maybe a little bit too much, but all of a sudden Austin Matthews was scoring a goal every other night, you'd probably be pretty happy about it.
So there's like different reasons as to acquiring a player other than is this guy better than this guy?
Yeah.
It's more like how does this guy
You can't
fit
look at the
with
trade
team?
in a vacuum.
Yeah, that's
which is the good
fascinating.
the good Branson thing, and that's a little bit different because that's more of a grit thing. But like Boston gave up a second round pick and I think a fourth for Johansson, and that's a lot. Because second round picks, especially nowadays, are very valuable. But the fact that he's gonna play with DeBrusk probably, and like especially on the power play, like it's gonna be a good fit. I'd be shocked if it wasn't a good fit.
What would you do with the Oilers if you're? I mean, I hear there's a GM job there. So let's say you're applying for that.
No, Keith.
What? I mean, man, Keith just had to breathe in the right. Like you just, wow, Keith's alive today.
Keith
and
just
the
had to
Edmonton media
sign.
was like, wow, he woke up and he put pants on. It's crazy.
Keith just had to sign his last name.
Yeah, I mean,
Now Keith actually like
he's been around for a while.
We laugh because of the fact that his brother is Wayne. But Keith actually has been in hockey, and he was in Boston. I believe he was in Arizona. So like he has actually been in hockey and earned it, sort of kind of thing, right? With Edmonton, you've got the nuclear weapon signed to less than he probably should be. If Leon Draisaitl continues to score 40 goals a year, $8.5 million is a steal.
Yeah.
And you've got Clefbaum, you've got Nurse. The Koskinen thing is questionable at best because you've got Olivier Rodrigue in the pipe. You've got Dylan Wells. If I'm Edmonton and let's say I finish and I've got the 10th overall pick, I am sprinting to the draft stage and taking Spencer Knight. Because by all accounts in hockey, outside of hockey, to a man, every person I've talked to has said this guy might be the next Vasilevsky. Like, he is that good.
So you would use a first-round pick on a goalie?
See, I'm of the mindset you never do it, but when someone says this guy is better than Vasilevsky was at 17, I immediately am listening.
Wow.
Because I remember how good Vasilevsky was at 17, and he was really good for the Russians. So, and I've seen Spencer Knight play, and he's got the tools to be a number one. Like, he's got the tools to be the next number one guy.
How do you...
So you need a goalie.
You need a goalie, so you draft a goalie. Then you've got contracts from Russell, Lucic, some other players as well. You have to look for a coach. I guess the first thing would be to see if you can move those contracts. Do you just keep Lucic because you can't move him? Do you retain salary and try to move him? Is he a useful guy at $3 million?
He's useful at $3 million. I would say it's going to be really hard to move that contract, mind you. I mean, the Canucks move Luongo, so it can be done, but you're going to have to package a major asset for that. I think that what a lot of teams skate by is developing. So you can have the best scouting staff on the planet, but the Boston Red Sox do it the best. They have like 5 or 6 scouts, and then they have like 3 pages of development staff listed on their website. So go out and find me tools. I'll develop them. I think that the Oilers have a lot of scouts and perhaps not a lot of development because there's no way Jesse Puljujärvi should have even been brought over here from Finland. They should have put him on a plane, sent him back, and said, we'll see you next year, then we'll have a discussion, kind of thing. They're rushing players because they just haven't been good for so long. Take McDavid out of it. Guys, they didn't have to develop him. That doesn't count.
No.
Take Draisaitl out of it. They didn't have to develop him. That doesn't count.
Draisaitl was an interesting one, too, because in his rookie year, they kept going, I don't know what we should do. And then after game 41 or whatever, they sent him back to junior and burned a year.
Right.
So he's almost good despite them.
Exactly. And so, like with Yamamoto, make him play in the AHL. I don't care how bad your big club is. Make him play there. You don't want your young players brought into what's been called a losing environment. You want them in and have your development coaches there all the time, working with them, talking them through things. Get a mental health coach. Talk with them about that because that's really important to a player's development is confidence. And I think that's sort of why Puljujärvi's having issues. So I think with the contracts, you could probably have a hockey man take Chris Russell. You might have to retain salary, but you could definitely get someone to take him. Lucic is probably going to be a little bit harder. But I think that they need whoever they draft this year should not, unless they get the first overall pick, which, oh my God. Because I think Hughes and Kakko will both play next year. Send them to whatever team they came from and let them develop. They shouldn't be in your lineup for at least 2 years.
Wow.
Really?
Kind of thing.
Wow.
Like, just let them develop. Stop touching, stop fiddling. You just need to develop. Right? So you need to focus on that. And Puljujärvi probably should start next year in the AHL. Like, he really should.
After his surgery's done, too, which they were making him play through.
Oh,
I think that bridge is burned, though. I have a feeling he's going to get traded. I don't think he wants to be there.
it might be irreparable.
Well, can you blame him?
No, I can't. I would want to be moved, too.
So that's the other thing is they need to start having better relationships with their players. Like, God forbid they burn the 97 bridge.
Well,
That's the big one.
That was the thing. Like Brandon Manning, who basically bragged about dummying McDavid, then gets traded to the Oilers, and they had to go to McDavid and go, "Hey, are you okay with this?" Like, I understand that was under a different manager.
And they tried to get him for like a year and a half or whatever, allegedly. So that's almost. Oh my God. It's just so dark every time we bring
I feel bad. I really do, because Nugent Hopkins is having a great year. Draisaitl has 40 goals. McDavid is McDavid. And there's no way with 3 players like that, and you have Clefbaum, and you have Nurse, that you should be in the situation that they're in. But the problem that Edmonton has is they have the fastest player on earth. And people think they have a fast team. No. They have a fast player. But when you surround him with Alex Chiasson's been good, but when you surround him with players like Alex Chiasson and Milan Lucic and Jujhar Khaira, like, they can't keep up. So they're not a fast team. McDavid is fast. That's what people need to say. McDavid's fast. Adam Larson, not fast. Right? Darnell Nurse is a good skater. Oscar Clefbaum's a good skater. But when you look it up front, like,
Who's going to skate with him?
Zach Cassian's playing with Connor McDavid?
Yeah.
Like,
Really?
there's just no situation where that makes sense, and it's not even a knock on Cassian. It's just
No, it's
not. It's
not.
not a
Who
great
has
match
skill?
at all.
Who has some skill?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He played on the
I was
World
surprised
Junior
no one
team.
picked him up. I was surprised no one picked him up at the deadline.
Yeah.
He was on the World Junior team, and when you're on Canada's World Junior team, you're not a bad hockey player.
Got
he's
suspended.
just not. He's just not a fit with McDavid. You have to have players that can fit with that style. And
Sorry.
I don't understand why, if you're going to play Puljujarvi in your NHL lineup, put him up there and see what happens.
Well, yeah, I would think you'd staple him to McDavid.
Yeah.
Like, why would you allow it to be any other way? I wonder with Puljujarvi if you have to get rid of him, if he says I'm not playing for you guys, do you say, okay, anybody that wants him has to take the Lucic contract?
Yeah, but then you're depreciating an asset. And that's the problem I have, is you never want to depreciate an asset. I would actually rather package a Chris Russell, because at least it's less of a burden. It makes a little bit more sense, because
Replaceable guy too. You can go out.
very. They actually have some pretty good defensive prospects. Caleb Jones and Ethan Barrett.
Yeah.
So, and they're not quite ready either, so they need to stay down there too. But you can't. The problem with that they have with these contracts is now that if you want to move any of these contracts, you got to depreciate a good asset, right? So, we'll trade you Puljujarvi, who, by the way, is having hip surgery, but you also have to take Lucic. So now you're trading an injured player with a bad contract. What is the return going to be?
Oh, it's going to be
Because
bad.
I am not lining up for that.
And
Right.
Ottawa tried that with Bobby Ryan when they're trying to trade Carlson, and that didn't work.
No.
And they
Perfect
couldn't get rid
example.
of
If I were Ottawa, though, I'd be picking up the phone to say, we'll take
Let's chat.
Puljujarvi if we can take Lucic too. We need to hit the floor.
Yeah.
And
There's
we're
a
going to
good-
need some toughness in the lineup because we're not going to be skilled.
Well, the thing with Lucic is he can still play. He just can't play
In those roles.
in that
At
role.
7 or 6 or
He
whatever
can't play a
he
$6
makes.
million
Yeah.
role,
No. He can play a $2 to $3 million role.
which on Ottawa wouldn't matter.
No, they don't care. Give me the cap hit.
If you were looking at Ottawa's trades at the deadline, Stone, Duchesne, Dzingel, what would you give it, like A, B, C?
The Stone trade it's an A.
It's an A.
For Ottawa.
Yeah. I have
Okay.
seen Eric Brandstrom play a lot. World Junior wise, watching a lot of tape. He's probably the best prospect not playing in the NHL.
So that was interesting to me. People saying they didn't get a first. Yes, they did.
Well, they got better than a first.
yeah, they
yeah.
got it developed first.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a yes. You didn't get a maybe, you got a yes.
He's a yes.
Yeah.
He is an absolute yes. This guy is going to be a stud unless Ottawa somehow manages to ruin him.
Well, they're good at developing, though. They
And
seem to be.
that's the thing, is like they've developed Shabbat, they've developed
so good.
Carlson. Like Eric Brandstrom is going to be a top pairing defenseman, and like as Leaf fans, you guys should be worried. Like this guy is going to be good. He's probably going to be the best defenseman in the Atlantic Canadian sort of like Toronto,
Montreal.
Like, there's a potential he's a better defenseman than Morgan Riley when all is said and done.
Better than Shabbat?
Yep.
Wow, that's big.
Because I think he's already great.
And like I had Shabbat when I did some work with the World Juniors, and I said this guy's going to be a really good defenseman. A pairing of Shabbat Brandstrom is going to be incredible.
So you give that an A. What do you give the Duchesne trade?
Like a B.
Still pretty good.
Yeah, like if they get both picks,
It's still sort of out there,
it's
right?
an A plus.
Yeah.
If they get both picks, it's an A plus. But they need to get both picks, and I just don't think that they will. They got Vitaly Abramov, who I was really high on in his draft year. Like I think he's a good young forward. Like he's 5'9", so he's small. But you're looking at today's NHL, guys like Johnny Gaudreau, Braden Point. Like you don't need to be 6'5" to play in the NHL anymore.
Gaudreau and Point, I was looking this up. I want to say they're both bottom 10 in the league in weight.
Exactly. And so Abramov's like 160 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he's basically Johnny Gaudreau.
Tulloch was really high on him in
Yeah,
this draft.
I
I
was.
think.
I like Vitaly Abramov. Just he was really good. It'll be interesting to see because Ottawa actually does a very good job of developing, and now they've got I think Chris Kelly on staff too.
Is it Kelly and...
Sean Donovan.
Right, I was going to say Burroughs. No, he's in Montreal.
No. So they've got a good development staff. So I'm interested to see if Abramov plays in your top 6, that trade's a home run. Because now you're getting at least one first round pick and you've got a top 6 player. That's a
Right.
home run.
Yeah. And then the Dangle trade, which kind of got lost in the shuffle, right?
Well, it's all kind of one
Who
trade.
did they yeah.
Because it was a separate deal, but it is,
Yeah.
I guess, the extension of the second trade. I can pull it up.
Yeah.
Because I've even forgotten now.
The pieces got a little
It's sort of like
muddled.
that when the Leafs traded Polak to the Sharks. I was like, that trade's amazing. And then I saw what they got for Reimer. I'm like, what the like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
I think it was all just one trade
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So, Dangle to Columbus for 2 second-round picks and Anthony Duclair.
That's a good trade.
So you
Second-round
like
picks.
what Pierre Dorian's done.
Yeah, which is why I've been pounding the drum that he is not the issue in Ottawa. Like, I actually think the guy's made some pretty shrewd moves. He handled that situation, which I guarantee you he didn't create, pretty well. Like, getting Eric Brandstrom is... I almost fell over when his name came across the ticker. I couldn't believe it because that guy has been pasted as he is off limits. Like, don't even ask, don't even think about it because he's just, Vegas was so high on him. And now you look, Vegas has traded Suzuki and they've traded Brandstrom.
And that's why they're hanging on to glass.
And they had an unbelievable first
First
draft.
round.
Their first 3 picks all in the first
Oh my
round were
God.
Cody Glass, Eric Brandstrom, and Nick Suzuki.
I remember being like, oh my God, if those 3 play, that team's going to be nasty.
And now, like, it's weird. They might have to go through the like expansion rebuild we all thought they were going to have to do off the top, but just like, I don't know.
Well, no, because
7
now they
years
have
down
Mark
the line.
Stone. Cody Glass will step in and play next year.
Yeah.
Pat
The one thing
Pacioretty.
Vegas has going for them is they also have Pacioretty.
yeah.
They have Nate Schmidt, and they have a Marc-Andre Fleury who's throwing up shutouts like it's crazy. But they're exempt from Seattle's expansion round.
Yeah.
So they don't have to worry about playing or burning or whatever because they're exempt. So they could play Cody Glass next year, and I think he's probably going to play. Like, Cody Glass is a really good hockey player.
Is he better than Brandstrom?
It's a
It's
toss-up.
neck and neck.
It's
Okay.
a toss-up. But the issue there is you need a franchise center,
Will he be
and
the
he
first?
is your franchise center.
I think he'd be the first Vegas draft pick to make the team out of camp. I think. Like in
Yes.
their team's history. The first Vegas draft pick to ever play a game for Vegas was Dylan Ferguson,
Hey,
the high school goalie.
who do you think, if you were to compare a franchise center to a Panago pizza, Steve?
I was wondering.
I held back. There was a few other things.
I love Panago pizza
Yeah.
so
Yes,
much.
you do. Yes, you do.
We don't get it in Newmarket. Panago, can we fix that?
Oh, well, we're getting it in. We're getting one soon out east. I know that. I know that there will be. I think there are some other plans.
Okay.
So you may be in luck very soon.
Because I really do like Panago Pizza, and they refuse to deliver where I live, and it makes me so upset.
There's one not far.
What is your kind of pizza?
I'm
What do you like?
I'm a meat lovers, and Dom is going to come in here with a sword. I like pineapple on my pizza.
Yeah! Yes, you do. Tropical Hawaiian.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet and smoky tropical sauce, bacon, Canadian ham, pineapple, mozzarella, and cheddar, because 2 cheeses are always better than 1.
Absolute.
That's
Pineapple
correct.
on pizza is kind of like Game of Thrones, as the people who hate it are louder than the people who like it.
But the people who like it are more numerous, I think.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We don't need to defend our pizza choices. They're just delicious. And by the way, I'm so glad everybody in this room agrees.
That was the pineapple thing. I used to be like, yeah, that's stupid, and I'm like, I eat pineapple on pizza all the time. Like, what's the big deal? And now I'm just like, I'm gonna be the guy who's just like, you do you.
Let people
pizza
enjoy
you
their
want.
thing, man.
Don't yuck someone else's yum.
Bingo.
Like Tavares Day T.O.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm cringing.
Why would you yuck Adam's yum?
Ted Lindsay passed away today.
Yeah.
And Ted Lindsay, if you don't know, Detroit Red Wings legend, was a phenomenal hockey player, but also was the guy who started the NHLPA. And there was a made-for-TV movie that CBC did back in the day about Ted Lindsay, and it talks about, you know, it shows. Who was it was Jack Adams that was the head of the Detroit Red Wings at the time, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yes.
so he would basically bring you into a room and he'd say, here's what you're making. Sign the contract. And if everybody said no, they'd be gone. And then he'd bring Gordie Howe into a room and say, what do you want to make?
Yeah.
And that was it. And so
But Gordie Howe didn't know.
then, yeah, Gordie Howe had no idea. He was such a, you know, he was an innocent guy, right? Like, he was super kind and, oh, no, I wouldn't want to take too much money from you, Mr. Adams, that sort of thing. And Ted Lindsay said, you guys are millionaires, and we're making $10,000 a year, and we have to work summer jobs. And so he was the guy that kind of started the NHLPA and took a lot of shit for it, retired for 5 years,
Right.
and then came back in 65, 60. He retired in 60, comes back 5 years later to play for the Wings, who had kicked him off the team and traded him to Chicago.
And it broke his heart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, my God. I think we talk about loyalty now. Loyalty back then for your team was huge. I just want to get both of your thoughts on Ted Lindsay and his legacy.
I saw this from NHL History Girl today. I just thought I would read it.
Hi, Jen.
Ted Lindsay boycotted his Hall of Fame induction because his wives, that might be misworded, wives and children weren't allowed to attend. Policy changed the next year. I'm quoting him, my feeling was families put up with us when we were temperamental idiots. They should be able to enjoy the benefits of what the league is giving us. So I try to think, I want to say that was in the 60s, 1966.
Six.
Yeah. So I try to go back in time to that conversation and what that conversation and fallout must have been like in the 60s, in the mid 60s.
That's like the height of the hockey men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to induct you into the Hall of Fame. And can you imagine the things that were said about Ted Lindsay in the moment that, oh, he wants to bring his wife and kids. Who does this guy think he is? Allowing women in there. What is this guy so much better than everyone else? We got to cater to him. Think of all the things that must have been said about him at the time, and look how right he is now. He's on the right side of history. I think that's what that term is.
I think for me, every single NHL hockey player in the last 30, 40 years, call it, owes Ted Lindsay a big thank you. Because that guy put his career on the line to make sure that players were compensated and players had a players association to represent them. Without Ted Lindsay and a couple, I think Glenn Hull and a couple other players, there's no players association.
Bobby Bond.
So these guys, in a time where hockey wasn't really a full-time job, put their career on the line so that guys today could whine and moan at an arbitration hearing about how they can get X amount of dollars more. So, with Ted Lindsay, and I ran into him once, and I don't know anyone that has had a bad thing to say about Ted Lindsay. Like, he's in the same way that no one had a bad thing to say about Mr. Beliveau, he was just, he might have been terrible Ted on the ice, but off the ice, like you said, my wife's coming or I'm not coming. Or we're having a PA because we deserve this. We're getting treated like shit.
We're not getting paid enough.
We're not getting paid enough. So he did a lot. And when you have the, I think, only PA award named after you, you mean something.
Yeah.
There's
Right?
a reason there's the Ted Lindsay Award,
And-
and it's not because he was a great hockey player.
Exactly. And if you ask any NHL player, like I've been able to ask a few, the award that means the most to them, they couldn't really, if you compared the two, they couldn't care less about the Hart.
It's the Ted
It's
Lindsay.
the Ted Lindsay. Because A, the name, and B, my peers think this. And that's what they care about. They don't care about what the media thinks.
That's sort of what we talked about. Was it last episode? I can't remember. It was so damn long. But like, if a bunch of writers don't think Connor McDavid's the best player or whatever,
He
or
still won
was
it,
the
didn't he? Didn't he
MVP?
win the Ted Lindsay last year?
He won the Ted Lindsay, but not
Yeah.
the Hart. He wasn't even nominated.
Yeah,
for
I
that.
think
Taylor
it's-
won the Hart.
That was
think
last episode.
And we talked about this.
That must have felt good.
I was the conductor of that train.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was the
right.
conductor of the Taylor Hall for Hart train. I was
Really?
all over it. I couldn't scream it loud enough.
I misheard. I thought you said trade. I'm like, that was you.
No, that was not me.
But you woulda.
I
Oh,
think,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think we ought to start paying, and I think the media pays attention to the Hart because that's theirs.
This is the one they vote on.
But I have to tell you, I think we start rating the Ted Lindsay above the Hart now.
Oh, it is. It's way more important.
And that's how it is seen in the league. But as fans, I think we ought to start changing our view on it because I don't believe that the Hart, because of the dumb thing that writers have come up with, well, you have to make the playoffs to be an MVP. That's bullshit. And as long as the writers think that, I think it devalues their vote.
Like, you know who was nominated for the Hart last year? And someone who I don't know if we've uttered this human being's name in a calendar year. Enze Kopitar. Nominated him for the freaking Hart. And I don't think we've
Yeah,
said his
McDavid
name.
wasn't even a nomination. Top
yeah, I think
three.
he finished 5th.
Yeah.
And
embarrassing.
it's not
But it's-
taking anything away from Kopitar, but we have not spoken this human being's name on this show.
It's
Exactly.
an indictment
Since
on
June.
It's an indictment on the process.
Oh, for sure. So I think like where Ted Lindsay's concerned is he's done so much for the league that I think isn't really measurable. Owners and players get to have their lockouts and strikes because Ted Lindsay made the PA.
Right.
Right? So there, as much as we hate lockouts, players have rights because of Ted Lindsay. So, I mean, when Mike Babcock was talking about Ted Lindsay, he teared up in his press conference. So I can't imagine what he said today because, like, what Ted Lindsay's meant for this game and just the fact that he was humble and just a gentleman, holding doors for people, like, out in the cold. Like, this guy's just
Salt of the earth kind of guy.
salt of the earth kind of guy. Get your lunchbox and put on your hard hat, and we're going to work.
I like that.
There's a class of person that he belongs in for sure. Beliveau, like you mentioned, Johnny Bauer,
Oh.
Ted Lindsay, people who are even better people than hockey players.
The first gentlemen of hockey are those three for sure.
Can I say my thoughts?
Sure.
Thank God they changed it from the Lester B. Pearson Award to the Ted Lindsay Award.
Why did she have a
Because-
name? Yeah, Prime Minister.
Because why was Lester B. Pearson ever a trophy in the NHL?
He was a great Canadian
Wow.
Prime Minister.
Was he? I don't
Yes,
even
he
remember
was.
which one.
He was the guy that first plotted the course for Canadians to be, instead of a warring nation, a peacekeeping nation.
Yeah.
He was the guy that said,
I mean, that sounds pretty good.
he said that we're not going to war anymore. Now our job is to get in the middle of wars and break off the sides so negotiation can happen. So that,
Should be the Lady Bing.
well, yeah,
Shouldn't
or
be any of it.
Should maybe
Who's the Lady Bing? I don't
should
even know
maybe
who.
be an order within Canada, like
Yeah.
a medal or something.
Which he has plenty of.
Yeah, so there you go. Like, no, as in, like, he deserves to have one named after him. I'll give you that.
Yeah, sure.
But the NHL, I do not get that.
Okay, so speaking of awards, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I have a thing that I've
Well,
sort
it
of
would
been
be time
trumpeting.
for a hot take, Rachel. We were expecting hot takes all day, and
Okay,
you're
I'm
giving us
sorry.
like all these reasoned and nuanced responses.
All right, everyone, the show starts now. All right.
So there needs to be the Norris for the best defenseman, and then there needs to be the Bobby Orr trophy. And the Bobby Orr trophy needs to be what the Norris has become. And that is the best offensive defenseman in the
scoring.
NHL.
Yeah.
Right. So you have your Art Ross, which a defenseman is never going to win because we have people like McDavid and Kucherov playing. So you make the Bobby Orr trophy, that for defensemen, and then you make the James Norris the actual best defenseman, because most of the time it's who is a defenseman who plays on the top pairing that has over 70 points.
Yeah, here's a recognizable name. I'll vote for him.
Exactly. So have your Bobby Orr trophy, because that man deserves a trophy. He revolutionized the position. So make the highest scoring defenseman or the best offensive defenseman the Bobby Orr trophy, and then have your James Norris and make it for an defensive defenseman. So a guy like Ryan Suter back in the day would win, or a Shea Weber would win it. Anton Strawman types, Mark Giordano.
Because they have a best
much
defensive
sadness.
forward award.
Yeah, so why not have the
Should
best
just have
offensive
more awards.
defenseman?
Yeah.
And it's the name
I agree.
is sitting right there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you do know what the roadblock to that is, right?
The hockey men.
Yes, but
Well, that's the roadblock to anything fun.
Their argument to that would be, well, you're saying Bobby Orr wasn't the best all-around defenseman. You're just saying he was a good offensive defenseman.
no.
I agree with you, by the
Then
way.
give the
I'm
Norris
just
to the
saying
highest
I know-
scoring guy.
So
Yeah.
what
Change
the
the
Norris
names
should
then.
maybe be changed to the Bobby Orr, and then your award could, I'm sure people would not want to call it the Bobby
wait,
Orr.
Steve,
They maybe
Steve.
want to call it the Paul Coffey.
There's an
I don't know.
award.
Yeah.
There's an.
Call it
No matter
something.
what you do, there will be people who are on your side and people who aren't.
Yeah.
I'm saying the majority.
so-
the majority will say, yes, have a Bobby Orr award.
Great.
No, don't make it this one.
Okay, well that's
Okay,
dumb.
fine.
But there does need to be an award.
whatever.
If you're going to have the best defensive forward award, which is also partially a joke now because it's just a forward who plays on the penalty kill that
Yeah.
scores a lot. Like, it's not...
Wasn't that Zetterberg's award for like?
No,
or
Datsuk's.
Datsuk's award for like
award.
years.
Although he was actually led the league in takeaways every single year. So
he deserved
okay,
it.
so he's good. But a guy like Mark Stone should be in the conversation. Sasha Barkov. Like, it was Patrice Bergeron's to lose, essentially, and he's sort of slowing down. But Mikko Koivu doesn't get enough because he doesn't score enough. Well, it's not about scoring. It's the best defensive forward.
yeah.
Jeff
well,
Merrick's
usually it's
thing-
like, well, we're not going to give you the heart, so we'll give you the Selke instead. Doug Gilmour in '93.
Yeah.
And Jeff Merrick's thing with the Selke is they don't give it to wingers anymore.
Which is
Like,
what
it's-
Mark Stone.
Exactly. Like, it's you got to be a center.
That's crap.
I know, it is crap.
Just so you guys should know, interesting. John Tortorella has indicated that Adam McQuaid will be a healthy scratch again tomorrow against the Devils. Maybe giving up 2 picks for him a mistake.
Dude, 2 picks and wasn't it one of the... Oh, God.
Wasn't it like a 4th and a 7th?
It was a prospect who was originally in the Erik Karlsson trade, but he's been traded so many times now I've lost track. So they got 3 assets for Adam McQuaid. Not bad, eh?
Not bad.
Pretty
Not a bad
good.
move.
Who was it?
Lastly, Rachel, and then we'll get to the press conference quickly, and then we've got to rock and roll here pretty quick. We'll do a quick press conference. You did an article in The Athletic. It wasn't written by you. It was about you. It was about mental health.
Right.
And, on this show, obviously, we're big proponents of speaking out and getting help and, crossing that barrier. Can you talk a little bit about your story and tell us kind of, in the Cole's notes, because we don't want to ruin the article. We want to push people to the article as well.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your story.
So, I went through some things growing up as a child that I didn't really think had an impact on me, just because I had such a supportive family and I used gymnastics and hockey as an escape. So it was kind of like, oh, nothing's really wrong. Like, everything's fine. It's only until the person that was my pillar was no longer there and I actually, watched him die, did it really become apparent that I was sort of dealing with some things that I had no idea that I was dealing with. Then I didn't really have an opportunity to really understand what I was dealing with because I was still living at home and I still had the support of my parents and everything. So I knew that my sister was battling a mental health issue, but I didn't know what it was because she's never been properly diagnosed until I've now pushed my parents to do that. But then when I moved to New Jersey, I was alone. Like, I moved to a new country. It's kind of in an awkward time right now. So things are very tense, and it's a very stressful job. And I really started to go downhill, like, very, very quickly, to the point where when my mom came down to visit me 3 weeks in, and she was already concerned. And I hadn't even found a place yet. Like, that's how quickly it started to go south. So fast forward to sort of the summer, and at this point, I'm in full spiral. Like, I'm not abusing alcohol or drugs or anything. I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping. And anyone who knows me knows, like, I'm a pretty slight person. I lost 17 pounds.
Wow.
And
Jesus.
like, I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. I was working like a dog. So I didn't really have time to do anything. And I was alone because I felt like I didn't really have anyone. So I finally got the push to go to see a psychiatrist. And I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's not the same as, like, our soldiers who, God bless them, go to war.
Yeah, there's different variants.
But there's different.
Yeah.
So where mine is from is some things I went through as a child. But that pillar that I keep talking about is my grandfather. And I walked in on him having a heart attack and had to start CPR. So for me, like, when you lose, apart from probably my mom, the most important person in your life, and that's how you lose them, that's not great. So once I got diagnosed, I started going through therapy, and it was like a weekly thing, and it was really looked down upon, and mental illnesses are really looked down upon still in society, and especially in professional sport, which is why, like, most athletes haven't come out about it. So when DeRozan came out, that really helped me, because I felt like, okay, I'm not as alone. But I really struggled in New Jersey because I was really alone, and I, with the exception of probably one person, maybe two in New Jersey, nobody really cared. And so I just felt like I was drowning. And you get into a point where you're spiraling, and then you're making really poor decisions. And I was making poor decisions well before I went to New Jersey because I just wasn't in a good mindset. And they really affected relationships, whether it was, like, with my family or with my friends. I think I said in the story, like, my friend sat me down and just said, "What happened to you?" And so that sort of was the kicker for me. Like, I need to get help. And I have been getting help, and that's sort of the one thing that I would preach is it takes a lot to stand up and say, like, I have something wrong, but you need to go and get help, because if you don't, then you're going to really struggle. And I struggled for probably 18 months before I said anything. And it turns out that I have something pretty serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, like, it's pretty near and dear, and my sister's got something too. So that's why I kind of pitched the idea of the mental health awareness night. But yeah, I would say, like, don't wait. And the one thing, if you see someone who's going through something, or even if you don't know if anyone's going through something, just be kind. Like, don't be a dick. It's not that hard.
It really is that simple, eh?
It's really that, like, if someone says, oh, like, I gotta go to the doctor, don't be like, oh, do you have to go to the doctor? Like, act like it's an inconvenience. You're not helping. Or if they say, oh, like, for me, my big thing is I have issues trusting people. Like, I don't trust people. And when they say, oh, just trust me, like, it'll be fine. Okay, you're not helping.
Yeah.
Like, you are not
I can't
helping.
respond to that positively. I just don't.
No, I like receipts. And I mean mental receipts.
Yeah. I know what you're
Exactly.
saying.
So if I can't trust you, saying, oh, just trust me, is probably the most useless thing that you can say.
It's like telling somebody who's pissed off to calm down.
That's exactly perfect.
But, well, and because oftentimes it brings the opposite result. Just trust me. I trust you less than before you said that.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that's perfect. So, and I said, I'm like, I was at the point where I was so dark that I barely trusted my own parents. And if I'm not trusting my parents, what the hell makes you think I'm going to trust you?
Yeah.
Right? These people created me, and I barely trusted them. So that really is sort of where I'm at. Although I will say, now that I have my opportunity, the past 2.5 years have been really tough for me, and I have listened to this podcast religiously since producer Chris. And I've watched every single one of.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I had to
It's
take
okay,
that
Jesse.
shot.
I love you. I have watched Steve's videos religiously, sometimes over and over again. And what you guys do is, in a period of time where hockey just wasn't fun for me, you made me realize that I still love this game, and this is why I love this game. It's not because of what I was going through. It's because of conversations like this, which is why I love this game. So I appreciate that from you guys, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that you guys have helped, but I mean, to all the listeners, if you need help, reach out, whether it's me or it's your friend or you go get help. Just find someone and talk, because I didn't. And I'm pretty confident in saying it almost cost me my life.
Well, it's brave of you to say that.
Yeah.
Publicly on several forums now. Athletic, PDO, Cast. Was it on Tulloch's show as well? And
it was on John Mattis's The Score, where Brock McGillis and I talked about it.
I did Mattis recently, yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where there needs to be an understanding that mental health or mental illness needs to be treated the same as a player with a broken leg or somebody who is pregnant. Why are you willing to support somebody who's pregnant, but you're not willing to support somebody who is dealing with depression or anxiety? It just gets swept under the rug because you can't see it.
And
right?
also in sports, showing any weakness is,
insane, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's if you actually paid attention, you can see it. Because anyone who paid really close attention to me, all they had to do was take one look at my eyes, or one look at how thin I was, or pay attention to my diet, because that's all you needed to see. And my mom said this to me. She goes, when the words "I think I hate hockey" came out of your mouth, I was really concerned about you.
Yeah.
That's a cry for help from you if I've ever heard one. Another thing, and it's a small thing, don't automatically praise someone when you've noticed they've lost some weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, we got to get past that.
Yeah.
Please,
Because it's not,
stop that.
necessarily, maybe they were trying to, great, but you don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe try to tap dance around it a little bit.
Maybe just don't talk about people's weight.
Or that.
That's easy.
What a concept
That'd be nice.
that is.
Yeah, it seems
be
to be
nice.
a difficult thing for people to not talk about other people's weight, which is terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's unbelievable, the things you hear and see, and just an everyday conversation. But Rachel, we really appreciate not only your honesty, but the tremendous compliment you paid us. I can guarantee you that the three of us don't feel like we didn't, you know what I mean? It's kind of like we kind of stepped in it. We didn't really, that wasn't the plan. And I think we're honored that you would say that.
Yeah. I don't know. You said all those nice things. I'm like, well, gosh.
But we
I have no response. Sorry.
But we're even more honored that you would come and give us 2 hours of your time and speak on something that's so important to all of us and has played a part in all of our lives.
Thanks for being the change that you want to see.
Yeah, seriously.
And the bravery
You know what I
to
mean?
do it.
Thank you. Yeah, I
and
mean,
that's not just mental health, by the way. Everything you've done. How old are you?
I turned 23 last month.
With what you've done in your
Same.
life, and let's just be frank, you're a woman too, and you've done it, and you've taught, and like for every young woman listening who wants this, or old woman listening who wants this, it's possible. You can do it. She's sitting in front of me right now.
Yeah,
And
I think I might have to I might be taking a step back from hockey. I don't know yet. I just know that the hockey men don't like that I speak publicly, but at the end of the day, if you have a platform, you've got to use it for good. So I'm not going to be the regular person that just sits by silently, especially when there's a bunch of issues in this world and some that are near and dear to me. So I'm happy you guys let me come on, and I mean, it's been so long, and I'm just
We're happy we
ecstatic.
finally got you on. That was great.
An inadequate response to someone who says they don't like something you do is nothing. You don't have to justify it with anything.
Exactly.
You're the one who came to me. No.
Let's do a very quick press conference because I know we've got people that want to ask Rachel questions. Go ahead.
Selke trivia. Who is the last non-center to win a Selke award?
I'm going to say something dumb like Patrick Kane. Because there was a while there where he was just winning everything.
Can I have the year? Or the range?
2002.
Oh, dear.
For the Dallas Stars.
Oh, Yuri Lettinen.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and he won it like 3 times in a row.
Okay, but he's
times.
a perfect example of a player who's exceptional defensively in the same way that Mark Stone is.
Yeah.
Why can't Mark Stone win the Selke?
Yeah, 100%.
It's because they need to be dubbed. Like one day someone went, Mark Stone is good defensively, and everyone just went, yes, you're right.
Yes, good sir.
And when someone, like, you got to say it on national TV, it seems. Like, if someone just gives Trevor Moore their blessing one day, we'll be like, yes, you know what? He should be in the Selke conversation.
I can't wait to see how many people talk about Trevor Moore's ass now that Babcock's mentioned it.
Oh, why not?
It's true.
I love my thick leaves.
It's true.
Next question. Who currently leads the NHL in plus minus?
Ronald Hainsey.
Ronald.
How many times have I texted you guys in our group chat just Ronald ...
Ronald.
He's,
and what an enigma. Like,
Okay, but is that not a screaming sign that stat might not tell the whole story?
Yeah, I think.
okay,
Yeah, I think I would agree.
why does Ron Hainsey lead the league in plus minus?
Because he's on a team that scores a lot.
But why isn't everyone else leading the league in plus minus? No, I'm trying to play the role of
This is your
person
devil's
who-
advocate?
Yes. My devil's advocate.
I do believe, actually, that his on-ice save percentage is a lot higher than most.
Okay. Interesting.
I know it was at the beginning of the year. And
Okay.
sort of in the first few months of the season. On-ice save percentage has a lot to do with it. Also, when Ron Hainsey's on the ice, I'm pretty sure he plays with,
Riley.
well, not just Riley, but like Tavares Marner or Matthews, somebody. So he's not playing with the fourth line,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, yes, plus minus, plus 38, I think he is.
33.
33.
And it's been just climbing all year. It's
And
crazy.
okay, like that's great, but that doesn't take away. Like he is a good defenseman, but he's not a 23-minute-a-night defenseman. Like
No.
there's a difference, right? You gotta.
Yeah.
He's a 12 to 15.
I would say, yeah, if you play him 15 a night, you're pretty good.
Yeah.
I like Trevor Moore. Great. We're going to play him 25 minutes a night. All right, wait.
Time out.
Let me just, yeah.
Let's back that up.
Yeah. Any more?
We're good.
Okay. Listen, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. Let's give yourself a shout out. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, just at Rachel Dory.
Spelled how?
RACHEL.
That's the easy part.
OERRIE. Yeah, that's sort of where I am right now. I've got Instagram at the same handle, but I think I'll probably start writing publicly soon. I don't know where. Whether it's back at an old stomping ground or just on my own blog.
Here's why I re-chose The Athletic.
I'm coming back. Hello, I am back. I'll probably start writing soon just because I've a lot of people have reached out and said we'd like to see your stuff public again just because of the insight. I will say that one of the things, if you do reach out to me, do not ask me to evaluate video of your 8-year-old son playing hockey. Just let your son have fun, please. But that's sort of where I am right now. It's just, I'm on Twitter. I'm pretty careful about my responses just because I still do want to work in the NHL. But I'm happy to sort of answer any questions, or if you want to reach out and you have questions, I'm there.
Right. And phrasing of questions is important. If you reach out and you say, player X effing sucks, why do they suck? She's probably not going to respond to you.
Probably not.
But if you say, hey, what's your opinion on player X? She might, right?
Yeah. Or why does this player do this? Or why do you think this player is playing here? Like when you pose the question about the slow starts.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yes.
Have an intelligent question. I'll probably give you an intelligent answer if I have one.
And in my case, it doesn't even have to be intelligent. Just neutrally worded.
Yeah, don't send me emojis with exclamation points yelling about how Ron Hainsey's playing with Riley, please.
Right. And Ron Hainsey, still an NHL player, by the way.
Yeah.
Still good enough to be an
And
NHL
he's
player.
actually, like, he's not that bad. He's
No,
just
he's not.
not playing in the right role because, well, everyone's injured.
Yep. Yeah. And Mike Babcock's a little stubborn, too.
Oh, Yeah, a little bit.
Hey, Rachel, thanks so much for coming on. Guys, we're going to have another show, I think, on Thursday?
Thursday.
We'll tweet it.
Yeah, sorry,
Who
this
knows?
is my fault this week.
It's always
My fault.
Oh,
this
God, Steve.
And
Actually, you know what? It is always my fault. You're right.
I also have to get out of here, guys. So we'll see you later. Thanks so much, Rachel, for coming on. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you in a few days, whenever that is.
Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Brought to you by Panago Pizza. Order at panago.com and stuff your face with deliciousness.